how to read and use this book. It seems presumptuous for us to be telling anyone else how to read a book, particularly when both of us have been known to start books in the middle or even read them backward. But since this is our book, we'd like to tell you how we think it should be tackled. After you've gotten the feel of it by flipping through and glancing at the cartoons, start with Chapter I. Actually do the exercises as you go along. Resist the temptation to skip over them and get to the good parts. If you have a compatible friend with whom to work on the exercises, so much the better. We hope you'll talk and argue and discuss your answers at length. We also hope you'll write your answers down so that this book becomes a personal record for you. Write neatly or illegibly, change your mind and cross out or erase, but do write. Read the book slowly. It took us more than 10 years to learn the ideas in it. We don't suggest that you take that long to read it, but if the methods suggested here make sense to you, you might want to make some changes, and it's easier to change a little at a time than all at once. After you've read a chapter, lay the book aside and give yourself a week to do the assignment before going on. You may be thinking, with everything else I have to do, the last thing I need is an assignment. Nevertheless, experience tells us that the discipline of having to put skills into action and record the results helps put the skills where they belong, inside you. Finally, you may wonder why some portions of this book, which is written by two people, are told from the point of view of one person. It was our way of solving the bothersome problem of constantly having to identify who was speaking about whose experience. It seemed to us that I would be easier for our readers than a constant repetition of I, Adele Faber, or I, Elaine Majlish. As for our conviction of the value of the ideas in this book, we speak in unison. We have both seen these methods of communication at work with our own families and with thousands of others. It is a great pleasure for us to share them with you. Now, all we are given is possibilities to make ourselves one thing or another. Jose Ortega y Gasset. 1. Helping children deal with their feelings. Part 1. I was a wonderful parent before I had children. I was an expert on why everyone else was having problems with theirs. Then I had 3 of my own. Living with real children can be humbling. Every morning I would tell myself, today is going to be different, and every morning was a variation of the one before. You gave her more than me. That's the pink cup. I want the blue cup. This oatmeal looks like throw up. He punched me. I never touched him. I won't go to my room. You're not the boss over me. They finally wore me down. And though it was the last thing I ever dreamed I'd be doing, I joined a parent group. The group met at a local child guidance center and was led by a young psychologist, Dr. Haim Jinot. The meeting was intriguing. The subject was children's feelings. And the 2 hours sped by. I came home with a head spinning with new thoughts and a notebook full of undigested ideas. Direct connection between how kids feel and how they behave. When kids feel right, they'll behave right. How do we help them to feel right? By accepting their feelings. Problem parents don't usually accept their children's feelings. For example, you don't really feel that way. You're just saying that because you're tired. There's no reason to be so upset. Steady denial of feelings can confuse and enrage kids. Also teaches them not to know what their feelings are, not to trust them. After the session I remember thinking, maybe other parents do that. I don't. Then I started listening to myself. Here are some sample conversations from my home just from a single day. Child: Mommy, I'm tired. Me: You couldn't be tired. You just napped. Child: Louder: But I'm tired. Me: You're not tired. You're just a little sleepy. Let's get dressed. Child: Wailing: No, I'm tired. Child: Mommy, it's hot in here. Me: It's cold. Keep your sweater on. Child: No, I'm hot. Me: I said, keep your sweater on. Child: No, I'm hot. Child: That TV show was boring. Me: No, it wasn't. It was very interesting. Child: It was stupid. Me: It was educational. Child: It stunk. Me: Don't talk that way. Can you see what was happening? Not only were all our conversations turning into arguments, I was also telling my children over and over again not to trust their own perceptions but to rely on mine instead. Once I was aware of what I was doing, I was determined to change. But I wasn't sure how to go about it. What finally helped me most was actually putting myself in my children's shoes. I asked myself, suppose I were a child who was tired, or hot, or bored. And suppose I wanted that all-important grown-up in my life to know what I was feeling. Over the next weeks I tried to tune into what I thought my children might be experiencing, and when I did, my words seemed to follow naturally. I wasn't just using a technique. I really meant it when I said, "So you're still feeling tired even though you just napped?" Or "I'm cold, but for you it's hot in here." Or "I can see you didn't care much for that show." After all, we were two separate people, capable of having two different sets of feelings. Neither of us was right or wrong. We each felt what we felt. For a while, my new skill was a big help. There was a noticeable reduction in the number of arguments between the children and me. Then, one day my daughter announced, "I hate Grandma," and it was my mother she was talking about. I never hesitated for a second. "That is a terrible thing to say," I snapped. "You know you don't mean it. I don't ever want to hear that coming out of your mouth again." That little exchange taught me something else about myself. I could be very accepting about most of the feelings the children had, but let one of them tell me something that made me angry or anxious and I'd instantly revert to my old way. I've since learned that my reaction was not that unusual. On the following page you'll find examples of other statements children make that often lead to an automatic denial from their parents. Please read each statement and jot down what you think a parent might say if he were denying his child's feelings. Child, "I don't like the new baby." Parent, denying the feeling. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. To child, "I had a dumb birthday party. After you went all out to make it a wonderful day." Parent, denying the feeling. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. 3 Child, "I'm not wearing this stupid retainer anymore. It hurts. I don't care what the orthodontist says." Parent, denying the feeling. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. 4 Child, "I hate that new coach. Just because I was 1 minute late he kicked me off the team." Parent, denying the feeling. underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. Did you find yourself writing things like, "That's not so. I know in your heart you really love the baby. What are you talking about? You had a wonderful party, ice cream, birthday cake, balloons. Well, that's the last party you'll ever have. Your retainer can't hurt that much. After all the money we've invested in your mouth, you'll wear that thing whether you like it or not. You have no right to be mad at the coach. It's your fault. You should have been on time." Somehow this kind of talk comes easily to many of us. But how do children feel when they hear it? In order to get a sense of what it's like to have one's feelings dismissed, try the following exercise. Imagine that you're at work. Your employer asks you to do an extra job for him. He wants it ready by the end of the day. You mean to take care of it immediately, but because of a series of emergencies that come up you completely forget. Things are so hectic, you barely have time for your own lunch. As you and a few co-workers are getting ready to go home, your boss comes over to you and asks for the finished piece of work. Quickly you try to explain how unusually busy you were today. He interrupts you. In a loud, angry voice he shouts, "I'm not interested in your excuses. What the hell do you think I'm paying you for to sit around all day on your butt?" As you open your mouth to speak, he says, "Save it," and walks off to the elevator. Your co-workers pretend not to have heard. You finish gathering your things and leave the office. On the way home you meet a friend. You're still so upset that you find yourself telling him or her what had just taken place. Your friend tries to help you in 8 different ways. As you read each response, tune into your immediate gut reaction and then write it down. There are no right or wrong reactions. Whatever you feel is right for you. I denial of feelings, there's no reason to be so upset. It's foolish to feel that way. You're probably just tired and blowing the whole thing out of proportion. It can't be as bad as you make it out to be. Come on. Smile. You look so nice when you smile. Your reaction. Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. To the philosophical response, look, life is like that. Things don't always turn out the way we want. You have to learn to take things in stride. In this world, nothing is perfect. Your reaction. Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. 3 advice, you know what I think you should do? Tomorrow morning go straight to your boss's office and say, "Look, I was wrong. Then sit right down and finish that piece of work you neglected today. Don't get trapped by those little emergencies that come up. And if you're smart and you want to keep that job of yours, you'll make sure nothing like that ever happens again. Your reaction. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. 4 questions. What exactly were those emergencies you had that would cause you to forget a special request from your boss? Didn't you realize he'd be angry if you didn't get to it immediately? Has this ever happened before? Why didn't you follow him when he left the room and try to explain again? Your reaction. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. V. Defense of the other person. I can understand your boss's reaction. He's probably under terrible pressure. You're lucky he doesn't lose his temper more often. Your reaction. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. 6. Pity. Oh, you poor thing. That is terrible. I feel so sorry for you. I could just cry. Your reaction. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. 7. Amateur psychoanalysis. Has it ever occurred to you that the real reason you're so upset by this is because your employer represents a father figure in your life? As a child you probably worried about displeasing your father, and when your boss scolded you it brought back your early fears of rejection. Isn't that true? Your reaction. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. 8. An empathic response, an attempt to tune into the feelings of another boy. That sounds like a rough experience to be subjected to. An attack like that in front of other people, especially after having been under so much pressure, must have been pretty hard to take. Your reaction. Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. You've just been exploring your own reactions to some fairly typical ways that people talk. Now I'd like to share with you some of my personal reactions. When I'm upset or hurting, the last thing I want to hear is advice, philosophy, psychology, or the other fellow's point of view. That kind of talk makes me only feel worse than before. Pity leaves me feeling pitiful, questions put me on the defensive, and most infuriating of all is to hear that I have no reason to feel what I'm feeling. My overriding reaction to most of these responses is, oh, forget it. What's the point of going on? But let someone really listen, let someone acknowledge my inner pain, and give me a chance to talk more about what's troubling me, and I begin to feel less upset, less confused, more able to cope with my feelings and my problem. I might even say to myself, my boss is usually fair. I suppose I should have taken care of that report immediately. But I still can't overlook what he did. Well, I'll go in early tomorrow and write that report first thing in the morning. But when I bring it to his office, I'll let him know how upsetting it was for me to be spoken to in that way. And I'll also let him know that, from now on, if he has any criticism, I would appreciate being told privately. The process is no different for our children. They too can help themselves if they have a listening ear and an empathic response. But the language of empathy does not come naturally to us. It's not part of our mother tongue. Most of us grew up having our feelings denied. To become fluent in this new language of acceptance, we have to learn and practice its methods. Here are some ways to help children deal with their feelings. To help with feelings. 1. Listen with full attention. 2. Acknowledge their feelings with a word O. I. See. 3. Give their feelings a name. 4. Give them their wishes in fantasy. On the next few pages you'll see the contrast between these methods and the ways that people usually respond to a child who is in distress. Instead of half listening, it can be discouraging to try to get through to someone who gives only lip service to listening. I listen with full attention. It's much easier to tell your troubles to a parent who is really listening. Sometimes a sympathetic silence is all a child needs, instead of questions and advice. It's hard for a child to think clearly or constructively when someone is questioning, blaming, or advising her. To acknowledge with a word I see. There's a lot of help to be had from a simple or I see. Words like these, coupled with a caring attitude, are invitations to a child to explore her own thoughts and feelings, and possibly come up with her own solutions, instead of denying the feeling. It's strange when we urge a child to push a bad feeling away, however kindly the child seems to get only more upset. 3. Give the feeling a name. Parents don't usually give this kind of response, because they fear that by giving a name to the feeling they'll make it worse. Just the opposite is true. The child who hears the words for what she is experiencing is deeply comforted. Someone has acknowledged her inner experience, instead of explanation and logic. When children want something they can't have, adults usually respond with logical explanations of why they can't have it. Often, the harder we explain, the harder they protest. 4. Give a child his wishes in fantasy. Sometimes just having someone understand how much you want something makes reality easier to bear. So there you have it, 4 possible ways to give first aid to a child in distress: by listening with full attention, by acknowledging his feelings with a word, by giving a name to his feelings, and by granting him his wishes in fantasy. But more important than any words we use is our attitude. If our attitude is not one of compassion, then whatever we say will be experienced by the child as phony or manipulative. It is when our words are infused with our real feelings of empathy that they speak directly to a child's heart. Of the 4 skills you've just seen illustrated, perhaps the most difficult is to have to listen to a child's emotional outpourings and then give a name to the feeling. It takes practice and concentration to be able to look into and beyond what a child says in order to identify what he or she might be feeling. Yet it's important that we give our children a vocabulary for their inner reality. Once they have the words for what they're experiencing, they can begin to help themselves. This next exercise has a list of 6 statements that a child might make to her parents. Please read each statement and figure out 1 a word or 2 that describe what the child might be feeling. 2 a statement you might make to the child to show you understand the feeling. Acknowledging feelings. The child says a word that describes what he or she might be feeling. Use the word in a statement that shows you understand the feeling. Don't question or give advice. Example: the bus driver yelled at me and everybody laughed. Embarrassment. That must have been embarrassing. Or sounds as if that was embarrassing. 1 I'd like to punch that Michael in the nose. Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on 2 Just because of a little rain my teacher said we couldn't go on our field trip. She's dumb. Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on 3 Mary invited me to her party, but I don't know underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. For I don't know why teachers have to load you down with so much homework over the weekend. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. 5. We had basketball practice today, and I couldn't sink that ball once. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. 6. Janie is moving away and she's my best friend. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Did you notice how much thought and effort it takes to let a child know you have a sense of what it is he or she might be feeling? For most of us it doesn't come naturally to say things like, "Boy, you sound angry," or "That must have been a disappointment for you," or "You seem to be having some doubts about going to that party," or "Sounds as if you really resent all that homework," or "Oh, that must have been so frustrating," or "To have a dear friend move away can be pretty upsetting." And yet it's statements like these that give children comfort and free them to begin to deal with their problems. By the way, don't worry about using words that are too big. The easiest way to learn a new word is to hear it used in context. You may be thinking, well, in this exercise I was able to give an initial response that showed I understood more or less. But where would the conversation go from there? How would I continue? Is it okay to give advice next? Hold off on giving advice. I know how tempting it is to try to solve a child's problem with an immediate solution. Ma, I'm tired. Then lie down and rest. I'm hungry. Then eat something. I'm not hungry. Then don't eat. Resist the temptation to make better instantly. Instead of giving advice, continue to accept and reflect on your child's feelings. Here's an example of what I mean. A father in our group reported that his young son came storming into the house with the first statement you worked on in your workbooks, "I'd like to punch that Michael in the nose." The father said, normally the conversation would have gone like this. "Son, I'd like to punch that Michael in the nose." Father, why? What happened? Son, he threw my notebook in the dirt. Father, well, did you do something to him first? Son, no. Father, are you sure? Son, I swear, I never touched him. Father, well, Michael is your friend. If you take my advice, you'll forget about the whole thing. You're not so perfect, you know. Sometimes you start up and then blame someone else. The way you do with your brother. Son, no, I don't. He starts up with me first. Oh, I can't talk to you. But the father had just attended a workshop on helping his children deal with their feelings, and this is what actually took place. Son, I'd like to punch that Michael in the nose. Father, boy, you're angry. Son, I'd like to push his fat face in. Father, you're that mad at him. Son, you know what that bully did? He grabbed my notebook at the bus stop and threw it in the dirt. And for no reason. Father, Son, I bet he thought I was the one who broke his dumb clay bird in the art room. Father, you think so? Son, yeah, he kept looking at me all the time he was crying. Father, oh. Son, but I didn't break it. I didn't. Father, you know you didn't. Son, well, I didn't do it on purpose. I couldn't help it if that stupid Debbie pushed me into the table. Father, so Debbie pushed you? Son, yeah. A lot of things got knocked down, but the only thing that broke was the bird. I didn't mean to break it. His bird was good. Father, you really didn't mean to break it. Son, no, but he wouldn't believe me. Father, you don't think he'd believe you if you told him the truth? Son, I don't know. I'm gonna tell him anyway whether he believes me or not. And I think he should tell me he's sorry for throwing my notebook in the dirt. The father was astonished. He hadn't asked questions and yet the child had told him the whole story. He hadn't given one word of advice, and yet the child had worked out his own solution. It seemed unbelievable to him that he could have been so helpful to his son just by listening and acknowledging his feelings. It's one thing to do a written exercise and read a model dialogue. It's another to put listening skills into action in a real situation with our own children. Parents in our groups report that it's helpful to role play with one another and get a little practice before dealing with actual situations in their own homes. On the following page you'll find a role-playing exercise to try with a friend or spouse. Decide which of you will play the child and which will play the parent. Then read only your part. Child's situation. Role-playing. The doctor said that you have an allergy and need to have shots every week so that you won't sneeze so much. Sometimes the shots are painful and sometimes you hardly feel them at all. The shot you had today was the kind that really hurt. After you leave the doctor's office, you want your parents to know how it felt. Your parent will respond to you in two different ways. The first time, your feelings will be denied, but keep trying to get your parent to understand anyway. When the conversation comes to a natural conclusion, ask yourself what your feelings were and share your answer with the person who is role-playing with you. Start the scene by rubbing your arm and saying, "The doctor nearly killed me with that shot." The situation is the same, only this time your parent will respond differently. Again, when the conversation comes to a natural conclusion, ask yourself what your feelings were this time and share your answer. Begin the scene in the same way, by saying, "The doctor nearly killed me with that shot." When you've played the scene twice, you might want to reverse roles so that you can experience the parent's point of view. Parent's situation. Role-playing. You have to take your child for allergy shots every week. Although You know your youngster dreads going, you also know that most of the time the shots just hurt for a second. Today, after leaving the doctor's office, your child complains bitterly. You'll be playing the scene twice. The first time, try to get your child to stop complaining by denying his or her feelings. Use the following statements. If you like, you can make up some of your own. Come on, it can't hurt that much. You're making a big fuss over nothing. Your brother never complains when he has a shot. You're acting like a baby. Well, you'd better get used to those shots. After all, you're going to have to get them every week. When the conversation comes to a natural conclusion, ask yourself what your feelings were and share your answer with the person who is role-playing with you. Your child will start the scene. The scene is the same, only this time you will really listen. Your responses will show that you can both hear and accept whatever feelings your child might express. For example, sounds as if it really hurt. That bad. Wouldn't it be great if someone would discover a pain-free way to treat allergies? It's not easy to get these shots week after week. I bet you'll be glad when they're over. When the conversation comes to a natural conclusion, ask yourself what your feelings were this time and share your answer. Your child will start the scene again. When you've played the scene twice, you might want to reverse roles so that you can experience the child's point of view. When you played the child whose feelings were brushed aside and denied, did you find yourself becoming more and more angry? Did you start out being upset about your shot and end up being mad at your parent? When you played the parent who tried to stop the complaining, did you find yourself getting more and more irritated with your unreasonable child? That's usually the way it goes when feelings are denied. Parents and children become increasingly hostile toward each other. Parent, when you were accepting of your child's feelings, did you sense the fight going out of your interchange? Did you experience your power to be genuinely helpful? Child, when your feelings were accepted, did you feel more respected? More loving toward your parent? Was the pain easier to bear when someone knew how much it hurt? Could you face it again next week? When we acknowledge a child's feelings, we do him a great service. We put him in touch with his inner reality. And once he's clear about that reality, he gathers the strength to begin to cope. Assignment. At least once this week have a conversation with a child in which you accept his or her feelings. Jot down what was said while it's still fresh in your mind. A quick reminder. Helping children deal with their feelings. Children need to have their feelings accepted and respected. 1. You can listen quietly and attentively. 2. You can acknowledge their feelings with a word. Oh. I see. 3. You can give the feeling a name. That sounds frustrating. 4. You can give the child his wishes in fantasy. I wish I could make the banana ripe for you right now. All feelings can be accepted. Certain actions must be limited. I can see how angry you are at your brother. Tell him what you want with words, not fists. Note, you may find it useful to make a copy of this and other reminder pages and put them up in strategic locations around the house. Part 2, Comments, Questions, and Parents' Stories. Questions parents have asked. 1. Is it important that I always empathize with my child? No. Many of our conversations with our children consist of casual exchanges. If a child were to say, "Mom, I decided to go to David's house after school today," it would seem unnecessary for the parent to reply, "So you made a decision to visit a friend this afternoon." A simple, "Thanks for letting me know," would be sufficient acknowledgement. The time for empathy is when a child wants you to know how he feels. Reflecting his positive feelings presents few problems. It's not hard to respond to a youngster's exuberant "I got 97 on my math test today," with an equally enthusiastic 97. You must be so pleased. It's his negative emotions that require our skill. That's where we have to overcome the old temptation to ignore, deny, moralize, etc. One father said that what helped him become more sensitive to his son's emotional needs was when he began to equate the boy's bruised, unhappy feelings with physical bruises. Somehow the image of a cut or a laceration helped him realize that his son required as prompt and serious attention for his hurt feelings as he would for a hurt knee. 2. What's wrong with asking a child directly, why do you feel that way? Some children can tell you why they're frightened, angry, or unhappy. For many, however, the question why only adds to their problem. In addition to their original distress, they must now analyze the cause and come up with a reasonable explanation. Very often children don't know why they feel as they do. At other times they're reluctant to tell because they fear that in the adult's eyes their reason won't seem good enough. For that you're crying. It's much more helpful for an unhappy youngster to hear, I see. Something is making you sad, rather than to be interrogated with, what happened, or why do you feel that way? It's easier to talk to a grown-up who accepts what you're feeling rather than one who presses you for explanations. 3. Are you saying we should let our children know we agree with their feelings? Children don't need to have their feelings agreed with, they need to have them acknowledged. The statement, "You're absolutely right," might be satisfying to hear for the moment, but it can also prevent a child from thinking things through for himself. Example. Child, the teacher says she's calling off our class play. She's mean. Parent, after all those rehearsals? I agree with you. She must be mean to do a thing like that. End of discussion. Notice how much easier it is for a child to think constructively when his feelings are accepted. Child, my teacher says she's calling off the class play. She's mean. Parent, that must be a big disappointment for you. You were looking forward to it. Child, yeah. Just because some kids fool around at rehearsal, it's their fault. Parent, listens silently. Child, she's mad because nobody knows their parts, too. Parent, I see. Child, she said if we shaped up she might give us one more chance. I better go over my lines again. Would you cue me tonight? Conclusion, what people of all ages can use in a moment of distress is not agreement or disagreement, they need someone to recognize what it is they're experiencing. For if it's so important to show my child I understand, what's wrong with simply saying, I understand how you feel? The problem with saying, I understand how you feel, is that some children just don't believe you. They'll answer, no, you don't. But if you take the trouble to be specific, the first day of school can be scary. So many new things to get used to, then the child knows you really do understand. 5. Suppose I try to identify a feeling and it turns out that I'm wrong. What then? No harm done. Your child will quickly set you right. Example. Child, Dad, our test was postponed till next week. Father, that must have been a relief for you. Child, no, I was mad. Now I'll have to study the same stuff again next week. Father, I see. You were hoping to get it over with. Child, yeah. It would be presumptuous for any one person to assume he could always know what another person is feeling. All we can do is attempt to understand our children's feelings. We won't always succeed, but our efforts are usually appreciated. 6. I know feelings should be accepted, but I find it hard to know how to react when I hear you're mean or I hate you from my own child. If I hate you upsets you, you might want to let your child know, I didn't like what I just heard. If you're angry about something, tell it to me in another way. Then maybe I can be helpful. 7. Is there any way to help a child who's upset other than by letting him know you understand his feelings? My son has very little tolerance for any kind of frustration. Occasionally it does seem to help when I acknowledge his feelings and say something like, that must be so frustrating. But usually when he's in such an emotional state he doesn't even hear me. Parents in our groups have found that when their children are extremely upset, sometimes a physical activity can help relieve some of the painful feelings. We've heard many stories about angry children who have felt calmer after punching pillows, hammering old grocery cartons, pounding and kneading clay, roaring like a lion, throwing darts. But the one activity that seems most comfortable for parents to watch, and most satisfying for children to do, is to draw their feelings. The 2 examples that follow happened within a week of each other. I had just come back from a workshop session and found my 3-year-old son lying on the floor having a tantrum. My husband was just standing there looking disgusted. He said, "Okay, child specialist, let's see if you can handle this one." I felt I had to rise to the occasion. I looked down at Joshua, who was still kicking and screaming, and grabbed a pencil and the pad near the phone. Then I knelt down, handed the pencil and pad to Joshua, and said, "Here. Show me how angry you are. Draw me a picture of the way you feel." Joshua jumped up immediately and began to draw angry circles. Then he showed it to me and said, "This is how angry I am." I said, "You really are angry," and tore another piece of paper from the pad. "Show me more," I said. He scribbled furiously on the page, and again I said, "Boy, that angry." We went through the whole thing one more time. When I handed him a fourth piece of paper, he was definitely calmer. He looked at it a long time. Then he said, "Now I show my happy feelings," and he drew a circle with two eyes and a smiling mouth. It was unbelievable. In 2 minutes he had gone from being hysterical to smiling just because I let him show me how he felt. Afterward my husband said, "Keep going to that group." At the next session of our group, another mother told us about her experience using the same skill. When I heard about Joshua last week, my first thought was how I wish I could use that approach with Todd. Todd is also 3, but he has cerebral palsy. Everything that comes naturally to other kids was monumental for him, standing without falling, keeping his head erect. He's made remarkable progress, but he's still so easily frustrated. Anytime he tries to do something and can't, he screams for hours on end. There is no way in the world I can get through to him. The worst part is that he kicks me and tries to bite me. I guess he thinks that somehow his difficulties are all my fault, and that I should be able to do something about it. He's angry at me most of the time. On the way home from last week's workshop I thought, what if I catch Todd before he goes into his full tantrum? That afternoon, he was playing with his new puzzle. It was a very simple one, with just a few big pieces. Anyway, he couldn't get the last piece to fit. And after a few tries he began to get that look on his face. I thought, oh no, here we go again. I ran over to him and shouted, "Hold it. Hold everything. Don't move. I've gotta get something." He looked startled. I frantically searched in his bookshelves and found a big purple crayon and a sheet of drawing paper. I sat down on the floor with him and said, "Todd, is this how angry you feel?" And then I drew sharp zigzag lines up and down. Up and down. "Yeah," he said, and yanked the crayon out of my hand and made wild slashing lines. Then he stabbed the paper over and over again, until it was full of holes. I held the paper up to the light and said, "You are so mad. You are absolutely furious." He grabbed the paper away from me and, crying all the while, tore it again and again until it was nothing more than a pile of shreds. When he was all finished, he looked up at me and said, "I love you, Mommy." It was the first time he'd ever said that. I've tried it again since and it doesn't work all the time. I guess I have to find some other physical outlet for him, like a punching bag or something. But I'm beginning to realize that what's most important is that, while he's punching or pounding or drawing, I be there watching him, letting him know that even his angriest feelings are understood and accepted. 8. If I accept all of my child's feelings, won't that give him the idea that anything he does is alright with me? I don't want to be a permissive parent. We too worried about being permissive. But gradually we began to realize that this approach was permissive only in the sense that all feelings were permitted. For example, I can see that you're having fun making designs in the butter with your fork. But that doesn't mean that you have to permit a child to behave in a way that's unacceptable to you. As you remove the butter, you can also let the young artist know that butter is not for playing with. If you want to make designs, you can use your clay. We found that when we accepted our children's feelings, they were more able to accept the limits we set for them. 9. What is the objection to giving children advice when they have a problem? When we give children advice or instant solutions, we deprive them of the experience that comes from wrestling with their own problems. Is there ever a time for advice? Certainly. For a more detailed discussion of when and how to give advice, see More About Advice on pages 164 to 166. 10. Is there anything you can do if you realize afterward that you've given your child an unhelpful response? Yesterday my daughter came home from school very upset. She wanted to tell me about how some kids picked on her in the playground. I was tired and preoccupied, and so I brushed her off and told her to stop crying. That it wasn't the end of the world. She looked very unhappy and went up to her room. I know I made her feel worse, but what can I do now? Every time a parent says to himself, I wish I hadn't said that. Why didn't I think to say, he automatically gets another chance. Life with children is open-ended. There's always another opportunity later in the hour, day, or week to say, I've been thinking about what you told me before, about those kids teasing you at the playground. And I realize now how upsetting that must have been for you. Compassion is always appreciated, whether it comes sooner or later. Cautions. Children usually object when their exact words are repeated back to them. Example. Child, I don't like David anymore. Parent, you don't like David anymore. Child, with annoyance, that's what I just said. This child might have preferred a less parrot-like response, such as, something about David bothers you. Or, sounds as if you're really annoyed with him. 2. There are youngsters who prefer no talk at all when they're upset. For them, mom or dad's presence is comfort enough. One mother told us about walking into the living room and seeing her 10-year-old daughter slumped on the sofa with tear-stained eyes. The mother sat down beside her daughter, put her arms around her, murmured, something happened, and sat silently with her for 5 minutes. Finally, her daughter sighed and said, thanks, Mom. I'm better now. The mother never did find out what happened. All she knew was that her comforting presence must have been helpful, because an hour later she heard her daughter humming to herself in her room. 3. Some children become irritated when they express an intense emotion and their parents' response is correct but cool. A teenager in one of our workshops told us that she came home one afternoon in a rage because her best friend had betrayed a very personal secret. She told her mother what had happened, and very matter-of-factly. Her mother commented, "You're angry." The girl said she couldn't help snapping back with a sarcastic, "No kidding." We asked her what she would have liked her mother to say. She thought a while and answered, it wasn't the words, it was how she said it. It was as if she was talking about the feelings of someone she didn't even care about. I guess I wanted her to show me that she was right in there with me. If she had just said something like, "Boy, Cindy, you must be furious at her," then I would have felt she understood. For it's also not helpful when parents respond with more intensity than the child feels. Example. Teenager, grumbling, "Steve kept me waiting on the street corner for half an hour, and then he made up some story that I know isn't true." Mother, that is inexcusable. How could he do such a thing to you? He's inconsiderate and irresponsible. You must feel like never seeing him again. It probably never occurred to the teenager to react so violently to his friend or to consider so drastic a retaliation. All he probably needed from his mother was an understanding grunt and a shake of the head to convey sympathy for his irritation at his friend's behavior. He didn't need the additional burden of having to cope with her strong emotions. Children don't appreciate having the names they call themselves repeated by their parents. When a child tells you he's dumb or ugly or fat, it's not helpful to reply with, "Oh, so you think you're dumb, or you really feel you're ugly." Let's not cooperate with him when he calls himself names. We can accept his pain without repeating the name. Example. Child, the teacher said we're only supposed to spend 15 minutes a night on our math. It took me a whole hour to finish. I must be dumb. Parent, it can be discouraging when work takes longer than you expect. Example. Child, I look terrible when I smile. All you can see are my braces. I'm ugly. Parent, you really don't like the way you look in those things. And it probably doesn't help to know that to me you're a pleasing sight with or without your braces. We hope our cautions haven't scared you off. It's probably obvious to you by now that dealing with feelings is an art, not a science. Yet we have faith, based upon years of observation, that parents, after some trial and error, can master the art. You'll sense after a while what is helpful to your individual child and what isn't. With practice you'll soon discover what irritates and what comforts, what creates distance and what invites intimacy, what wounds and what heals. There is no substitute for your own sensitivity. Parents' stories. We teach the same basic principles to every group. Yet we never cease to be surprised at the originality of parents or the variety of situations in which these principles are applied. Each of the following stories is presented basically as parents have written them. In most cases the children's names have been changed. You'll notice that not every single thing the parents say is a model response, but their basic willingness to listen and their attitude of acceptance are what make the difference. The parents who told these first two stories to the group found it difficult to believe that when they refrained from giving advice the child really did start to work toward his own solution. This mother introduced her story with, "Listen to how little I said. Nikki, age 8, comes home from school and says, I'd like to punch Jeffrey. Me, you're really mad at Jeffrey. Nikki, yeah. Whenever we play soccer and I get the ball he says, give it to me, Nikki, I'm better than you are. Wouldn't that make anybody mad? Me, yes. Nikki, but Jeffrey's not really like that. In first grade he was always nice. But I think when Chris came in the second grade, Jeffrey picked up the habit of boasting from him. Me, I see. Nikki, let's call Jeffrey and invite him to the park. My son is a first grader who is not aggressive and doesn't get into fights. Therefore I tend to be overprotective because he seems so vulnerable. On Monday he came home from school and told me that a boy in his class, who is much bigger than he is, sent a deputy over to tell him that he was going to be beat up tomorrow. My first reaction was pure hysteria. Keep him home from school, teach him overnight self-defense, anything to save him pain and fear. Instead of showing him my alarm, I decided to listen attentively and just answered, Then Douglas launched into a non-stop monologue. He said, yes, so I've figured out 3 strategies for defense. First, I'll try to talk him out of fighting. I'll explain that you shouldn't fight because it's uncivilized. Then if that doesn't work, I'll put on my glasses, but, he paused and thought here, if he's a bully that won't stop him, and he must be a bully because I never even spoke to him and now he wants to beat me up. Then, if nothing else works, I'll get Kenny to attack him. Kenny is so strong. The bully will just look at him and be scared. I was shocked and just said, oh, and he said, okay, it'll be okay. I have plans to use, and he walked out of the room. Relaxed. I was so impressed with my son. I had no idea he could be so brave or so creative about handling his own problems. And all this came about because I just listened and kept out of his way. But I didn't let it go there. I said nothing to Douglas, but I called his teacher that afternoon and alerted her to what was going on. She said it was good I called, because in today's world no threat should be overlooked. The next day it took all my self-control not to ask him what happened, but he said to me, Mommy, guess what? The bully never came near me today. Some parents reported their amazement at the calming effect their accepting statements had. The old calm down, or cut it out, seemed only to agitate the children further. But a few words of acknowledgement often soothed the most savage feelings and changed the mood dramatically. This first example is from a father. My daughter, Holly, came in from the kitchen. Mrs. G really yelled at me in gym today. Oh. She screamed at me. She was really mad. She yelled, you don't hit the ball that way in volleyball. You do it his way. How should I know? She never told us how to hit it. You were angry at her for yelling. She made me so mad. It can be frustrating to be yelled at for no good reason. She had no right. You feel she shouldn't have yelled at you? No. I'm so mad at her, I could step on her. I'd like to stick pins in a doll of her and make her suffer. Hang her by the thumbs. Boil her in oil. Turn her over a spit. At this point Holly smiled. I smiled. She began to laugh, and so did I. She then remarked that it was really silly the way Mrs. G yelled. Then she said, I sure know now how to hit the volleyball to satisfy her. Usually I might have said, you probably did something wrong, to make her yell. Next time listen when the teacher corrects you and then you'll know what to do. She would probably have slammed the door enraged in her room about what an insensitive idiot she had for a father, along with a miserable teacher. Setting, my kitchen. I have just put the baby down for her nap. Evan comes home from nursery school all excited because he's going to Chad's house to play. Evan, hi, Mom. Let's go to Chad's now. Mom, Nina, the baby, is sleeping now, but we'll go later. Evan, getting upset, I want to go now. You said we could. Mom, how about if I walk you over with your bike? Evan, no. I want you to stay with me, starts to cry hysterically, I want to go now. He takes the drawings he has just brought home from school, crumples them, and stuffs them in the garbage. Mom, my light bulb goes on. Boy, are you furious? You're so angry you threw your drawings away. You must really be upset. Here you were, so looking forward to playing with Chad, and Nina is sleeping. That's so disappointing. Evan, yeah, I really wanted to go to Chad's. Stops crying, can I watch TV, Mom? Mom, sure. Situation, father was going fishing and 4-year-old Danielle wanted to go with him. Daddy, all right, honey, you can come along, but remember, we'll be standing outside for a long time and it's cold outside. This morning. Danielle, confusion is spread across her face and she answered with great hesitation. I changed my mind. I want to stay home. 2 minutes after Daddy left the tears began. Danielle, Daddy left me and he knew I wanted to go. Mommy, preoccupied at the time and not in the mood to cope. Danielle, we both know that you decided to stay home. Your crying is distracting and I don't want to listen, so if you are going to cry go to your room. She runs to her room wailing. Minutes later Mommy decides to try the new method. Mommy, going to Danielle's room and sitting on her bed, you really wanted to be with Daddy, didn't you? Danielle stopped crying and nodded her head. Mommy, you felt confused when Daddy mentioned how cold it would be. You couldn't make up your mind. Relief showed in her eyes. Nodding again, she dried her eyes. Mommy, you felt you didn't have enough time to make up your mind. Danielle, no, I didn't. At this point I hugged her. She bounced off her bed and went off to play. It also seemed to help the children to know that they could have two very different feelings at the same time. After the baby was born, I always told Paul that he loved his new brother. Paul would shake his head, no. This past month I've been saying, it seems to me, Paul, you have two feelings about the baby. Sometimes you're glad you have a brother. He's fun to watch and play with. And sometimes you don't like having him around at all. You just wish he'd go away. Paul likes that. At least once a week now, he'll say to me, tell me about my two feelings, Mommy. Some parents particularly appreciated having the skills to be helpful when a child's mood was one of discouragement or despair. They were glad to know they didn't have to take on their children's unhappiness and make it their own. One mother said, I've just begun to realize what unnecessary pressure I've been putting myself under to make sure my kids are happy all the time. I first became aware of how far gone I was when I found myself trying to scotch tape a broken pretzel together to stop my 4-year-old from crying. I've also begun to realize what a burden I've been putting on the children. Think of it. Not only are they upset about the original problem, but then they get more upset because they see me suffering over their suffering. My mother used to do that to me, and I remember feeling so guilty as if there was something wrong with me for not being happy all the time. I want my kids to know that they're entitled to be miserable without their mother falling apart. My son, Ron, came in with mudded overalls and downcast face. Father, I see a lot of mud on your pants. Ron, yeah, I suck at football. Father, you had a hard game. Ron, yeah, I can't play. I'm too weak. Even Jerry knocks me down. Father, it's so frustrating to get knocked down. Ron, yeah. I wish I was stronger. Father, you wish you were built like Superman. Ron, yeah, then I could knock them down. Father, you could run right over those tacklers. Ron, I could find plenty of running room. Father, you could run. Ron, I can pass, too. I'm good on the short pass, but I can't throw a bomb, long pass. Father, you can run and pass. Ron, yeah, I can play better. Father, you feel you could play better. Ron, next time I'm going to play better. Father, you know you'll play better. Ordinarily I would have greeted Ron with some remarks such as, "You're a good player. You just had one bad game. Don't worry. You'll do better next time." He probably would have sulked and gone to his room. I've made a tremendous discovery in this group. The more you try to push a child's unhappy feelings away, the more he becomes stuck in them. The more comfortably you can accept the bad feelings, the easier it is for kids to let go of them. I guess you could say that if you want to have a happy family, you'd better be prepared to permit the expression of a lot of unhappiness. Hans has been going through a difficult period. He has a teacher who is very hard on him and whom he doesn't like. When he is most unhappy with himself and most down in the dumps, usually when he is taking the school pressures out on us at home, he calls himself stupid, feels no one likes him because he is stupid, says he is the stupid of his class, and so on. On one of these nights my husband sat down with him, with all the concern in the world. "Frank, gently, Hans, you're not stupid." "Hans, I am too stupid. I'm a stupid. "Frank, but, Hans, you're not stupid. Why, you're one of the smartest 8-year-olds I know." "Hans, I am not. I'm stupid." "Frank, still gently, you're not stupid." "Hans, I am too stupid." On and on it went. I didn't want to butt in and I couldn't bear to listen, so I left the room. To his credit, Frank never lost his temper. But Hans went to bed still saying he was stupid, still down in the dumps. I went into him. I had had a horrendous day with him. He had devoted most of the afternoon and evening to aggravating me, and I didn't think I had it in me to cope with much more. But there he was lying in bed, miserably saying he was stupid and everyone hated him, so I went in. I didn't even know what I had left in me to say. I just sat on the edge of the bed, exhausted. Then a phrase we used in class came to me and I said it almost mechanically, "Those are rough feelings to have." Hans stopped saying he was stupid and was silent for a minute. Then he said, "Yeah." That somehow gave me the strength to go on. I just began talking randomly then about some of the nice or special things he'd said or done over the years. He listened for a while and then began participating with some of his own memories. He said, "Remember when you couldn't find your car keys and you were looking all over the house and I said to look in the car and they were there?" After about 10 minutes of this, I was able to kiss a boy goodnight who had restored his faith in himself. Some parents were very comfortable with the idea of granting their children in fantasy what they couldn't give them in reality. It was so much easier for these parents to say, "You wish you had," than to have an all-out battle over who was right and why. David, 10, I need a new telescope. Father, a new telescope? Why? There's nothing wrong with the one you already have. David, heatedly, it's a kid's telescope. Father, it's perfectly adequate for a boy your age. David, no, it isn't. I need a 200-power telescope. Father, I could see we were headed for a big fight. I decided to try to shift gears. So you'd really like a 200-power telescope? David, yeah, 'cause then I could see into the craters. Father, you want to get a really close look at them. David, that's right. Father, you know what I wish? I wish I had enough money to buy you that telescope. No, with your interest in astronomy, I wish I had enough money to buy you a 400-power telescope. David, a 600-power telescope. Father, an 800-power telescope. David, getting enthusiastic, a 1,000-power telescope. Father, a. David, excitedly, I know. If you could, you'd buy me the one at Mount Palomar. As we both laughed, I realized what made the difference. One of the keys to giving in fantasy was to really let yourself go, to be far out fantastic. Even though David knew it wasn't going to happen, he seemed to appreciate it that I took his longing so seriously. My husband and I took Jason and his older sister, Leslie, to the Museum of Natural History. We really enjoyed it, and the kids were just great. Only on the way out we had to pass a gift shop. Jason, our 4-year-old, went wild over the souvenirs. Most of the stuff was overpriced, but we finally bought him a little set of rocks. Then he started whining for a model dinosaur. I tried to explain that we had already spent more than we should have. His father told him to quit his complaining and that he should be happy for what we did buy him. Jason began to cry. My husband told him to cut it out, and that he was acting like a baby. Jason threw himself on the floor and cried louder. Everyone was looking at us. I was so embarrassed that I wanted the floor to open up. Then I don't know how the idea came to me. I pulled a pencil and paper out of my bag and started writing. Jason asked what I was doing. I said, I'm writing that Jason wishes he had a dinosaur. He stared at me and said, and a prism, too. I wrote, a prism, too. Then he did something that bowled me over. He ran over to his sister, who was watching the whole scene, and said, Leslie, tell Mommy what you want. She'll write it down for you, too. And would you believe it, that ended it. He went home very peacefully. I've used the idea many times since. Whenever I'm in a toy store with Jason and he runs around pointing to everything he wants, I take out a pencil and a scrap of paper and write it all down on his wish list. That seems to satisfy him. And it doesn't mean I have to buy any of the things for him unless maybe it's a special occasion. I guess what Jason likes about his wish list is that it shows that I not only know what he wants but that I care enough to put it in writing. This final story speaks for itself. I've just been through one of the most harrowing experiences of my life. My 6-year-old daughter, Suzanne, has had croup before, but never an attack like this. I was terrified. She couldn't breathe and started to turn color. I couldn't get an ambulance, so I had to drive her to the emergency room along with my son Brian and my mother, who was visiting for the day. My mother was completely hysterical. She kept repeating, oh my God. She can't breathe. We'll never make it. What have you done to this child? In a voice louder than my mother's I said, Susie, I know you're having trouble breathing. I know it's scary. We're on our way now to get help. You're going to be all right. If you like, you can hold on to my leg while I drive. She held on to my leg. At the hospital, 2 doctors and a few nurses crowded around. My mother was still ranting and raving. Brian asked me if Susie will really die like Grandma keeps saying. I didn't have time to answer, because the doctors were trying to keep me out of the room. And I knew Susie needed me to be there. I could see by her eyes that she was terrified. They gave her a shot of adrenaline. I said, that hurts, doesn't it? She nodded. Then they put a tube down her throat. I said, I know the tube must hurt, but it will help you. She still wasn't breathing normally, and they put her into an oxygen tent. I said, it must feel strange with all that plastic around you. But this is also to help you breathe and get well. Then I put my hand through the zippered part of the tent and held her hand and told her, I will not leave you. I'll be here with you even when you're asleep. I'll be here as long as you need me. Her breathing became a little easier, but her condition was still critical and I stayed with her for 72 hours with practically no sleep. Thank God she pulled through. I know that without these workshops it would have been very different. I would have been in a complete panic. By talking to her the way I did. 2. Engaging cooperation. Part I. By this time, your children have probably presented you with numerous opportunities to put your listening skills into action. Kids usually let us know loud and clear when something is bothering them. I know that In my own house any day with the children was like a night at the theater. A lost toy, a too short haircut, a report due for school, new jeans that didn't fit right, a fight with brother or sister. Any of these crises could generate enough tears and passion for a 3-act drama. We never lacked for material. The only difference is that in the theater the curtain falls and the audience can go home. Parents don't have that luxury. Somehow we have to deal with all the hurt, anger, and frustration and still retain our sanity. We know now that the old methods don't work. All our explaining and reassuring bring no relief to the children, and wear us out. Yet the new methods can present problems, too. Even though we're aware of how much more comforting the empathic response can be, it's still not easy to give. For many of us the language is new and strange. Parents have told me. I felt so awkward at first, not like myself, as if I were playing a part. I felt phony, but I must have been doing something right, because my son, who never says more than yup, nope, and do I have to, suddenly began to talk to me. I felt comfortable, but the children seemed uneasy. They looked at me suspiciously. I discovered that I never listened to my kids before. I'd wait for them to finish talking so I could say what I had to. Real listening is hard work. You have to concentrate if you are not just going to give a pat response. One father reported, I tried it and it didn't work. My daughter came home from Sunday school with a long face. Instead of my usual why the sour puss, I said, Amy, you seem very upset about something. She burst into tears, ran to her room, and slammed the door. I explained to that father that even when it doesn't work, it works. Amy heard a different sound that day, one that told her that someone cared about her feelings. I urged him not to give up. In time, when Amy knows she can count on an accepting response from her father, she'll feel it's safe to talk about what's bothering her. Perhaps the most memorable response I heard was from a teenager who knew that his mother was attending my workshops. The boy came home from school muttering angrily, they had no right to keep me off the team today just because I didn't have my gym shorts. I had to sit and watch the whole game. It was so unfair. That must have been very upsetting to you, she said to him with concern. He snapped at her, oh, you always take their side. She grabbed his shoulder. Jimmy, I don't think you heard me. I said. That must have been very upsetting for you. He blinked and stared at her. Then he said, Dad should go to that course, too. Until now we've been concentrating on how parents can help children deal with their negative feelings. Now we would like to focus on helping parents deal with some of their own negative feelings. One of the built-in frustrations of parenthood is the daily struggle to get our children to behave in ways that are acceptable to us and to society. This can be maddening, uphill work. Part of the problem lies in the conflict of needs. The adult need is for some semblance of cleanliness, order, courtesy, and routine. The children couldn't care less. How many of them would, of their own volition, take a bath, say please or thank you, or ever change their underwear? How many of them would even wear underwear? A lot of parental passion goes into helping children adjust to societal norms. And somehow the more intense we become, the more actively they resist. I know there were times when my own children thought of me as the enemy, the one who was always making them do what they didn't want to do. Wash your hands. Use your napkin. Keep your voices down. Hang up your coats. Did you do your homework? Are you sure you brushed your teeth? Come back and flush the toilet. Get into pajamas. Get into bed. Go to sleep. I was also the one who stopped them from doing what they wanted to do. Don't eat with your fingers. Don't kick the table. Don't throw dirt. Don't jump on the sofa. Don't pull the cat's tail. Don't put beans up your nose. The children's attitude became, I'll do what I want. My attitude became, you'll do as I say, and the fight was on. It got to the point where my insides would churn every time I had to ask a child to do the simplest thing. Take a few minutes now to think about what it is that you insist your children do, or not do, during a typical day. Then list your personal daily Dos and don'ts in the space below. In a single day I see to it that my children, or child, do the following. In the morning. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. In the afternoon. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. In the evening. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. I also make sure that my children, or child, don't do the following. In the morning. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. In the afternoon. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. In the evening. Underscore 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 underscore. underscore 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 underscore. Whether your list is long or short, whether your expectations are realistic or unrealistic, each item on that list represents your time and your energy and contains all the ingredients necessary for a battle of wills. Are there any solutions? Let's first look at some of the methods most commonly used by adults to get children to cooperate. As you read the example that illustrates each method, go back in time and pretend you're a child listening to your parents speak. Let the words sink in. What do they make you feel? When you have your answer, write it down. Another way to do this exercise is to have a friend read each example aloud to you as you listen with closed eyes. I blaming and accusing. Your dirty fingerprints are on the door again. Why do you always do that? What's the matter with you anyway? Can't you ever do anything right? How many times do I have to tell you to use the doorknob? The trouble with you is you never listen. As a child I'd feel underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. 2 name calling. It's below freezing today and you are wearing a light jacket. How dumb can you get? Boy, that really is a stupid thing to do. Here, let me fix the bike for you. You know how unmechanical you are. Look at the way you eat. You're disgusting. You have to be a slob to keep such a filthy room. You live like an animal. As a child I'd feel underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. 3 threats. Just you touch that lamp once more and you'll get a smack. If you don't spit that gum out this minute, I'm going to open your mouth and take it out. If you're not finished dressing by the time I count to 3, I'm leaving without you. As a child I'd feel underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. 4 commands. I want you to clean up your room right this minute. Help me carry in the packages. Hurry up. You still didn't take out the garbage? Do it now. What are you waiting for? Move. As a child I'd feel underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. V. Lecturing and moralizing. Do you think that was a nice thing to do to grab that book from me? I can see you don't realize how important good manners are. What you have to understand is that if we expect people to be polite to us, then we must be polite to them in return. You wouldn't want anyone to grab from you, would you? Then you shouldn't grab from anyone else. We do unto others as we would have others do unto us. As a child I'd feel underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. 6 warnings. Watch it, you'll burn yourself. Careful, you'll get hit by a car. Don't climb there. Do you want to fall? Put on your sweater or you'll catch a bad cold. As a child I'd feel underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. 7 martyrdom statements. Will you two stop that screaming? What are you trying to do to me? Make me sick, give me a heart attack. Wait till you have children of your own. Then you'll know what aggravation is. Do you see these gray hairs? That's because of you. You're putting me in my grave. As a child I'd feel underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. 8 comparisons. Why can't you be more like your brother? He always gets his work done ahead of time. Lisa has such beautiful table manners. You'd never catch her eating with her fingers. Why don't you dress the way Gary does? He always looks so neat. Short hair, shirt tucked in. It's a pleasure to look at him. As a child I'd feel underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. 9 sarcasm. You knew you had a test tomorrow and left your book in school. Oh. Smart. That was a brilliant thing to do. Is that what you're wearing, polka dots and plaid? Well, you ought to get a lot of compliments today. Is this the homework you're bringing to school tomorrow? Well, maybe your teacher can read Chinese, I can't. As a child I'd feel underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. X prophecy. You lied to me about your report card, didn't you? Do you know what you're going to be when you grow up? A person nobody can trust. Just keep on being selfish. You'll see, no one is ever going to want to play with you. You'll have no friends. All you ever do is complain. You've never once tried to help yourself. I can see you 10 years from now stuck with the same problems and still complaining. As a child I'd feel underscore 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 on underscore 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 un. Now that you know how the child in you would react to these approaches, you might be interested in finding out the reaction of others who have tried this exercise. Evidently, different children respond differently to the same words. Here are some sample reactions from one group. Blaming and accusing. The door is more important than I am. I'll lie and tell her it wasn't me. I'm a yuck. I'm shrinking. I want to call her a name. You say I never listen, so I won't. Name calling. She's right. I am stupid and unmechanical. Why even try? I'll fix her. Next time I won't even wear a jacket. I hate her. Ho hum, there she goes again. Threats. I'll touch the lamp when she's not looking. I want to cry. I'm afraid. Leave me alone. Commands. Try and make me. I'm frightened. I don't want to move. I hate his guts. Whatever I do, I'll be in trouble. How do you get transferred out of this lousy outfit? Lecturing and moralizing. Yak yak yak. Who's even listening? I'm dumb. I'm worthless. I want to get far away. Boring, boring, boring. Warnings. The world is scary, dangerous. How will I ever manage? By myself? Whatever I do, I'll be in trouble. Martyrdom statements. I feel guilty. I'm scared. It's my fault she's sick. Who even cares? Comparisons. She loves everyone more than me. I hate Lisa. I feel like a failure. I hate Gary, too. Sarcasm. I don't like being made fun of. She's mean. I'm humiliated, confused. Why try? I'll get back at her. No matter what I do, I can't win. I'm boiling with resentment. Prophecy. She's right. I never will amount to anything. I can too be trusted. I'll prove him wrong. It's no use. I give up. I'm doomed. If we as adults experience these feelings just from reading some words on a page, what must real children feel? Are there alternatives? Are there ways to engage our children's cooperation without doing violence to their self-esteem or leaving them with such a backwash of bad feelings? Are there methods that are easier for parents, that exact less of a toll from them? We'd like to share with you 5 skills that have been helpful to us and to the parents in our workshops. Not every one of them will work with every child. Not every skill will suit your personality. And there isn't any one of them that is effective all the time. What these 5 skills do, however, is create a climate of respect in which the spirit of cooperation can begin to grow. To engage cooperation. 1. Describe. Describe what you see or describe the problem. 2. Give information. 3. Say it with a word. 4. Talk about your feelings. 5. Write a note. I describe. Describe what you see, or describe the problem. Instead of describe. Instead of. It's hard to do what needs to be done when people are telling you what's wrong with you. Describe. It's easier to concentrate on the problem when someone just describes it to you. Instead. Describe. Instead. Describe. When grown ups describe the problem, it gives children a chance to tell themselves what to do. 2. Give information. Instead of. Give information. Instead of. Give information. Information is a lot easier to take than accusation. Instead of. Give information. Instead of. Give information. When children are given information, they can usually figure out for themselves what needs to be done. 3. Say it with a word. Look at the contrast between the effect of the long paragraph and the effect of a single word. Instead of. Say it with a word. In this case, less is more. Children dislike hearing lectures, sermons, and long explanations. For them, the shorter the reminder, the better. 4. Talk about your feelings. Make no comment about the child's character or personality. Instead of. Talk about your feelings. Instead of. Talk about your feelings. Children are entitled to hear their parents' honest feelings. By describing what we feel, we can be genuine without being hurtful. Notice, When parents are being helpful, they talk about their feelings only. They use the word I or I feel instead of talk about your feelings. Instead of talk about your feelings. It's easier to cooperate with someone who is expressing irritation or anger, as long as you're not being attacked. Write a note. Sometimes nothing we say is as effective as the written word. The note below was written by a father who was tired of cleaning his daughter's long hairs from the sink drain. This was written by a working mother who taped it to the family TV set. This note was hung on the back of a bedroom door. It was a two-sided sign that netted "Too tired. Parents an extra hour of sleep on Sunday morning." When they were ready to let the children in, they flipped the sign over. This father got tired of yelling and finally decided to let a note do the talking for him. Mother flew in a paper airplane with words on it to her son and his friend, neither of whom could read. They ran in to ask what the words said, and when they found out, they ran back to put away their toys. There you have it, 5 skills that encourage cooperation and leave no residue of bad feelings. If your kids happen to be in school now or in bed or are, by some miracle, playing quietly, then this is your chance to fit in a few minutes of practice. You can sharpen your skills on some hypothetical children before your own descend on you. Exercise I. You walk into your bedroom and find that your freshly bathed child has just thrown a wet towel on your bed. Write a typical statement that might be made to the child that would not be helpful. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Be in the same situation. Show how each of the skills listed below could be used to invite your child's cooperation. 1. Describe. Describe what you see, or describe the problem. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. 2. Give information. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. 3. Say it with a word. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. 4. Talk about your feelings. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. 5. Write a note. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. You've just applied 5 different skills to the same situation. In these next situations, choose the one skill that you think would be most effective with your own child. Exercise 2. Situation A. You are about to wrap a package and can't find your scissors. Your child has a pair of scissors but is constantly borrowing yours and not returning them. Unhelpful statement. Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on skilled response. Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on skill used. Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on situation B. Your youngster keeps leaving his sneakers in the kitchen doorway. Unhelpful statement. Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on skilled response. Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on skill used. Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on situation C. Your child has just hung his wet raincoat in the closet. Unhelpful statement. Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on skilled response. underscore 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 on underscore 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 on skill used underscore 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 on underscore 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 on situation D. You realize your child has not been brushing his teeth lately. Unhelpful statement. Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on skilled response. Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on skill used. Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on I remember my own experience when I first experimented with these skills. I was so gung-ho to get this new approach going in my family that I came home from a meeting, tripped over my daughter's skates in the hall, and sweetly told her, "Skates belong in the closet." I thought I was wonderful. When she looked up at me blankly, and then went back to reading her book, I hit her. I've since learned two things. 1. It's important to be authentic. Sounding patient when I'm feeling angry can only work against me. Not only do I fail to communicate honestly, but because I've been too nice, I wind up letting it out on my child later on. It would have been more helpful had I bellowed, "Skates belong in the closet." For that, my daughter might have bestirred herself. 2. Just because I don't get through the first time doesn't mean I should revert to the old ways. I have more than one skill at my disposal. I can use them in combination and, if necessary, in increasing intensity. For example, in the case of the wet towel, I might start by calmly pointing out to my daughter, "The towel there is getting my blanket wet." I could combine that with, "Wet towels belong in the bathroom." If she's off in one of her daydreams and I really want to penetrate her thoughts, I can increase the volume. "Jill, the towel." Suppose she doesn't budge and my gorge begins to rise. I can get louder still. "Jill, I don't want to have to sleep in a cold, wet bed all night." I might want to save my voice. I could conceivably drop a note onto her ever-present book, "Wet towels on my bed make me see red." I could even imagine myself getting mad enough to tell her, "I don't like being ignored. I'm putting away your wet towel, and now you have a resentful mother." There are many ways to match the message to the mood. You might want to apply these skills now to the realities of your own home. If so, take a second look at your list of daily do's and don'ts on page 51. Is it possible that some of the musts on that list could be made easier for you and your child by using the skills you worked with just now? Perhaps the skills in Chapter 1, on how to accept a child's negative feelings, could also help to ease the situation. Give it some thought and write down the skills you think you might like to try this week. The problem, the skills I might use. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Some of you may be thinking, but suppose my child still doesn't respond, what then? In the next chapter we'll explore some more advanced skills for engaging our children's cooperation. We'll be talking about problem solving and other alternatives to punishment. Your assignment for the coming week will help you solidify what you've been working on today. In the meantime, I hope that the ideas in this chapter will make the days ahead a little easier for you. Assignment. One unhelpful thing I did not say this week. Sometimes what we don't say can be as helpful as what we do say. Situation. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. I didn't say. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Two new skills I put to use this week. Situation 1. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Skill used. Underscore 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 on. Child's reaction. Underscore 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 on. My reaction. Underscore 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 on. Situation 2. Underscore 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 on. underscore 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 on. Skill used. Underscore 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 on. Child's reaction. Underscore 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 on. My reaction. Underscore 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 on. 3. A note I wrote. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. 4. Read part 2 of Engaging Cooperation. A quick reminder. To engage a child's cooperation. 1. Describe what you see, or describe the problem. There's a wet towel on the bed. 2. Give information. The towel is getting my blanket wet. 3. Say it with a word. The towel. 4. Describe what you feel. I don't like sleeping in a wet bed. 5. Write a note. Above towel rack. Please put me back so I can dry. Thanks. Your towel. Part 2. Comments, questions, and parents' stories. Questions. 1. Isn't how you say something to a child just as important as what you say? It certainly is. The attitude behind your words is as important as the words themselves. The attitude that children thrive on is one that communicates, you're basically a lovable, capable person. Right now. There's a problem that needs attention. Once you're aware of it, you'll probably respond responsibly. The attitude that defeats children is one that communicates, you're basically irritating and inept. You're always doing something wrong, and this latest incident is one more proof of your wrongness. 2. If attitude is so important, why bother about words? A parent's look of disgust or tone of contempt can hurt deeply. But if, in addition, a child is subjected to words like stupid, careless, irresponsible, you'll never learn, he's doubly wounded. Somehow. Words have a way of lingering long and poisonously. The worst part is that children sometimes pull out these words at a later date and use them as weapons against themselves. 3. What's wrong with saying please to a child if you want him to do something? Certainly for requesting small favors like, please pass the salt, or please hold the door. The word please is a common amenity away of taking the sting out of the otherwise crude commands, pass the salt, or hold the door. We say please to our children to model a socially acceptable way to make a small request. But please lends itself best to our more relaxed moments. When we're really upset, a gentle please can lead to trouble. Consider the following dialogue. Mother, trying to be nice, please don't jump on the sofa. Child, continues jumping. Mother, louder, please don't do that. Child, jumps again. Mother, suddenly slaps child hard. I said please, didn't I? What happened? Why did this mother go from politeness to violence in a few seconds? The fact is that when you've extended yourself and have been ignored, anger follows swiftly. You tend to think, how dare this kid defy me after I've been so nice? I'll show him. Wham. When you want something done immediately, it's a good idea to speak forcefully rather than to plead. Aloud, firm sofas are not for jumping on, would probably stop the jumping a lot sooner. If the youngster persists, he can always be removed swiftly, with a sternly repeated, sofas are not for jumping on. 4. Is there any way to explain the fact that sometimes my kids respond when I ask them to do something and sometimes I can't seem to get through? We once asked a group of school children why they sometimes didn't listen to their parents. Here's what they told us. When I come home from school, I'm tired, and if my mother asks me to do something, I pretend I don't hear her. Sometimes I'm so busy playing or watching TV, I really don't hear her. Sometimes I'm mad about something that happened in school and I don't feel like doing what she tells me. In addition to the children's thoughts, here are some questions you might want to ask yourself when you feel you are not getting through. Does my request make sense in terms of my child's age and ability? Am I expecting an 8-year-old to have perfect table manners? Does he feel my request is unreasonable? Why does my mother bug me to wash behind my ears? Nobody looks there. Can I give her a choice about when to do something, rather than insisting upon right now? Do you want to take your bath before your TV show or right after? Can I offer a choice about how something is done? Do you want to take your bath with your doll or your boat? Are there any physical changes that could be made in the house that would invite cooperation? Could some hooks be placed low in the closet to eliminate the struggle with hangers? Would some additional shelves in a child's room make cleanup less overwhelming? Finally, are most of my moments with my child spent asking her to do things? Or am I taking out some time to be alone with her just to be together? 5. I must confess that in the past I've said everything to my daughter. You're not supposed to. Now I'm trying to change and she's giving me a hard time. What can I do? The child who has had heavy doses of criticism may be super sensitive. Even a gentle "your lunch" may seem to her like one more indictment of her forgetful nature. This child may need to have a lot overlooked and a great deal of approval before she can begin to hear anything resembling the slightest hint of disapproval. Later on in the book you'll find ways to help your youngster see herself more positively. In the meantime, there will very likely be a transition period in which she might react suspiciously and even with hostility to her parents' new approach. But don't let your daughter's negative attitude discourage you. All the skills you've read about are ways of showing respect to another person. Most people respond to that eventually. 6. Humor works best with my son. He loves it when I ask him to do something in a funny way. Is that all right? If you can reach your child's head through his funny bone, more power to you. There's nothing like a little humor to galvanize children into action and to perk up the mood in the household. The problem for many parents is that their natural sense of fun fizzles out from the daily irritation of living with kids. One father said that a surefire way for him to put a spirit of play into the task ahead was to use another voice or accent. The kid's favorite was his robot voice. This is RC3C. The next person who takes ice and does tea refill tray will be orbited into outer space. Please take affirmative action. 7. Sometimes I find that I'm repeating myself about the same thing over and over again. Even though I use skills, I still sound as if I'm nagging. Is there any way to avoid this? Often what makes us repeat ourselves is a child who acts as if he hasn't heard us. When you are tempted to remind the child about something for the second or third time, stop yourself. Instead, find out from him if you've been heard. For example, Mother, Billy, we're leaving in 5 minutes. Billy doesn't answer and continues to read the comics. Mother, would you tell me what I just said? Billy, you said we're leaving in 5 minutes. Mother, okay, now that I know you know, I won't mention it again. 8. My problem is that when I ask for help my son says, sure, Dad. Later, and then he never follows through. What do I do then? Here's an example of how one parent handled that problem. Father, Stephen, it's been 2 weeks since the lawn was mowed. I'd like it done today. Son, sure, Dad, later. Father, I'd feel better if I knew just when you plan to get to it. Son, as soon as this program is over. Father, when is that? Son, about an hour. Father, good. Now I know I can count on the lawn being done 1 hour from now. Thanks, Steve. Comments, cautions, and anecdotes about each skill. I describe. Describe what you see, or describe the problem. The best part of using descriptive language is that it takes out the finger pointing and accusation, and helps everyone focus on what needs to be done. The milk spilled. We need a sponge. The jar broke. We need a broom. These pajamas are torn. We need a needle and thread. You might want to try each of the above statements on yourself, only. This time start each sentence with a you. For example, you spilled the milk. You broke the jar. You tore your pajamas. Notice the difference. Many people claim the you makes them feel accused and then defensive. When we describe the event, instead of talking about what you did, we seem to make it easier for the child to hear what the problem is and deal with it. I was furious when my 2 young sons came to dinner covered with green watercolor paint, but I was determined not to lose my temper and scream at them. I turned to my list of skills that I had taped to the pantry door and used the first one I saw. Describe what you see. Here's what happened next. Me, I see 2 boys with green paint on their hands and faces. They looked at each other and ran into the bathroom to wash up. A few minutes later I walked into the bathroom and was ready to scream again. The tiles were covered with paint. But I hung on to my one skill. Me, I see green paint on the bathroom walls. My older boy ran to get a rag, saying, "To the rescue." 5 minutes later, he called me in to look again. Me, sticking with description, I see that someone helpful cleaned all the green paint off the bathroom walls. My older boy beamed. Then the younger one piped up, "And now I'm going to clean off the sink." If I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't have believed it. Caution. It is possible to use this skill in a way that can be irritating. For example, one father told us he was standing near the front door on a cold day and said to his son, who had just entered, "The door is open." The boy countered with, "So why don't you close it?" The group decided that the boy experienced his father's descriptive statement as, "I'm trying to get you to do the right thing, hint, hint." The group also decided that descriptive statements work best when the child feels that his help is genuinely needed. To give information. What we like about giving information is that, in a sense, you're giving the child a gift he can use forever. For the rest of his life he'll need to know that milk turns sour when it's not refrigerated, that open cuts need to be kept clean, that fruit needs to be washed before eating, that cookies get stale when the box is left open, and so on. Parents have told us that the skill of giving information isn't hard. What's hard, they say, is leaving off the insult at the end, such as dirty clothes belong in the laundry basket. You'll never learn, will you? We also like giving children information because the child seems to experience it as an act of confidence in him. He says to himself, "Grown-ups trust me to act responsibly once I have the facts." Monique came home from her brownie meeting and was wearing her uniform. She started to play in the garden. I must have yelled at her 3 or 4 times to change into a pair of slacks. She kept saying, "Why?" I kept saying, "You'll rip your uniform." Finally, I said, "Slacks are for playing in the garden, uniforms are for wearing to brownie meetings." To my amazement she stopped what she was doing and immediately went in to change. A father shared this experience about himself and his newly adopted 5-year-old Korean son. Kim and I walked down the block together to visit a neighbor and return his ladder. As we were about to ring the bell, a group of kids who were playing in the street pointed to Kim and yelled, "He's a chink. He's a chink." Kim looked confused and upset, even though he didn't know what the words meant. A lot of thoughts rushed through my mind. They haven't even got the right country, the little stinkers. I'd like to give them hell and call their parents, but then they'd wind up taking it out on Kim. For better or worse, this is his neighborhood, and he's got to find a way to live in it. I walked up to the boys and very quietly said, "Name calling can hurt feelings." They seemed taken aback by what I said. Maybe they thought they were going to be yelled at. Then I went into my neighbor's house but left the door open. I didn't insist that Kim come inside. 5 minutes later I looked out the window and saw Kim playing with the other kids. I looked up to see 3-year-old Jessica on her tricycle following her 8-year-old brother, who was cycling down the street. Luckily, no cars were in sight. I called out, "Jessica, 2 wheels can ride in the street. 3 wheels belong on the sidewalk." Jessica got off her tricycle, solemnly counted the wheels, and walked her tricycle onto the sidewalk, where she began to ride again. Caution. Refrain from giving the child information she already knows. For example, if you were to tell a 10-year-old, milk turns sour when it's unrefrigerated, she might conclude either that you think she's stupid, or that you're being sarcastic. 3. The one-word statement. Many parents have told us how much they appreciate this skill. They claim it saves time, breath, and boring explanations. Teenagers we've worked with have told us they too prefer the single word, door, dog or dishes, and find it a welcome relief from the usual lecture. As we see it, the value of the one-word statement lies in the fact that, instead of an oppressive command, we give the child an opportunity to exercise his own initiative and his own intelligence. When he hears you say, the dog, he has to think, what about the dog? Oh, yeah, I didn't walk him yet this afternoon. Guess I'd better take him out now. Caution. Don't use your child's name as your one-word statement. When a child hears a disapproving Susie many times during the day, she begins to associate her name with disapproval. 4. Describe what you feel. Most parents are relieved to discover that it can be helpful to share their real feelings with their children, and that it's not necessary to be eternally patient. Children are not fragile. They're perfectly capable of dealing with statements like, "This isn't a good time for me to look at your composition. I'm tense and distracted. After dinner I'll be able to give it the attention it deserves. It's a good idea to steer clear of me for the next little while. I'm feeling irritable and it has nothing to do with you." One single mother who was raising 2 young children said that she used to be upset with herself because she often had no patience with them. Finally, she decided to try to be more accepting of her feelings and let her children know about them in terms they could understand. She started saying things like, "I have as much patience as a watermelon now." And a little later on, "Well, right now I have as much patience as a grapefruit." And still later she would announce, "It's about the size of a pea now. I think we ought to quit before it shrivels." She knew the children took her seriously, because one evening her son said, "Mom, what size is your patience now? Could you read us a story tonight?" Still others expressed concern about describing their feelings. If they shared their honest emotions, wouldn't that make them vulnerable? Suppose they said to the child, "That upsets me," and the child answered, "So, who cares?" It's been our experience that children whose feelings are respected are likely to be respectful of adult feelings. But there could well be a transition period in which you might get a fresh "so, who cares?" If it comes to that, you can let the child know, "I do. I care about how I feel. And I care about how you feel. And I expect this to be a family where we are all caring about each other's feelings." Caution. Some children are very sensitive to their parents' disapproval. For them, strong statements like, "I am angry," or "that makes me furious" are more than they can bear. In retaliation they'll belligerently answer, "Well, then, I'm angry at you, too." For those children it's best just to state your expectations. For example, instead of, "I'm angry at you for pulling the cat's tail," it would be more helpful to say, "I expect you to be kind to animals." Write a note. Most children love receiving notes, both those who can read and those who can't. Little ones are usually thrilled to receive a printed message from their parents. It encourages them to write or draw notes back to their parents. Older children also like receiving notes. A group of teenagers we worked with told us that a note can make you feel good, as if you were getting a letter from a friend. They were touched that their parents cared enough to take the time and trouble to write to them. One young man said that what he appreciated most about notes was that they didn't get any louder. Parents report that they too like using notes. They say it's a quick, easy way to get through to a child, and one that usually leaves a pleasant aftertaste. One mother told us that she keeps a pad in an old coffee mug filled with a dozen pencils on her kitchen counter. Several times a week she finds herself in a situation where either the children have heard her make the same request so often they've tuned her out, or she's about to give up on them and do the chore herself. At those moments, she says it takes less out of her to pick up a pencil than to open her mouth. Here's a sample of some of her notes. Dear Billy. I haven't been out since this morning. Give me a break. Your dog. Harry. Dear Susan. This kitchen needs to be put back in order. Please do something about 1 books on stove. 2 boots in doorway. 3 jacket on floor. 4 cookie crumbs on table. Thanks in advance. Mom. Notice. Story time tonight at 7:30 p.m. All children who are in pajamas with teeth brushed are invited. Love. Mom and Dad. A light touch with notes isn't necessary, but it can certainly help. Sometimes, however, the situation is not funny and humor would be inappropriate. We're thinking of the father who told us that his daughter ruined his brand new CD by leaving it on the floor, where it got stepped on. He said that if he hadn't been able to vent his anger in writing, he would have punished her. Instead, he wrote, Allison. I'm boiling. My new CD was taken without my permission and now it's full of scratches and doesn't play anymore. Mad Dad. A little later the father received this note back from his daughter. Dear Dad. I'm really sorry. I'll buy you another one this Saturday and whatever it costs you can take it out of my allowance. Allison. We never cease to marvel at how children who cannot read manage to read the notes their parents write to them. Here's the testimony of a young working mother. The worst time for me when I get home from work is that 20 minutes of trying to prepare dinner while the kids are running back and forth between the refrigerator and the bread box. By the time the food is on the table, they have no appetite left. Last Monday night I put a crayoned note up on the door. Kitchen closed. Until dinner. My 4-year-old immediately wanted to know what it said. I explained each word. He was so respectful of that note, he wouldn't even put his foot in the kitchen. He just played with his sister outside the door until I took the note down and called them in. The next night I put the note back up again. While I was making the hamburgers, I heard my son teaching his 2-year-old sister what each word meant. Then I saw her point to each word and read, kitchen. Closed. Until dinner. The most unusual use of a note was told to us by a mother who was a part-time student. Here's her story. In a weak moment I volunteered to have a meeting at my home for 20 people. I was so nervous about having everything ready on time that I left school early. When I got home, I took one look around the house and my heart sank. The place was a mess, piles of newspapers, mail, books, magazines, dirty bathroom, beds unmade. I had a little over 2 hours to get everything into shape and I was starting to feel hysterical. The kids were coming home any minute, and I knew that I didn't have it in me to cope with a single demand or any of their fighting. But I didn't want to have to talk or explain. I decided to write a note, but there wasn't an uncluttered surface in the house to put anything down on. So I grabbed a piece of cardboard, punched 2 holes in it, stuck in a string, and hung a sign around my neck. Human time bomb. If irked or irritated, will explode. Company coming. Help urgently needed. Then I went to work like a fury. When the kids came home, they read my sign and volunteered to clear their books and toys. Then, without another word from me, they made their beds and mine. Unbelievable. I was about to tackle the bathroom when the bell rang. I panicked for a moment, but it was only the man delivering the extra chairs. I motioned for him to come in and wondered why he didn't move. He just kept staring at my chest. I looked down and saw the sign still there. As I started to explain, he said, "Don't worry, lady. Calm down. Just tell me where you want the chairs and I'll set them up for you. People have asked us, if I use these skills appropriately, will my children always respond? Our answer is, we would hope not. Children aren't robots. Besides, our purpose is not to set forth a series of techniques to manipulate behavior so that children always respond. Our purpose is to speak to what is best in our children, their intelligence, their initiative, their sense of responsibility, their sense of humor, their ability to be sensitive to the needs of others. We want to put an end to talk that wounds the spirit and search out the language that nourishes self-esteem. We want to create an emotional climate that encourages children to cooperate because they care about themselves, and because they care about us. We want to demonstrate the kind. 3 alternatives to punishment. Part I. As you began to use some of the skills for engaging cooperation, did you find that it took thought and self-control not to say some of the things you usually say? For many of us, sarcasm, lectures, warnings, name-calling, and threats were all woven into the language we heard as we were growing up. It isn't easy to give up the familiar. Parents have often told us how upset they were because, even after attending a session, they'd still find themselves saying things to their children they didn't like. The only difference was that now they heard themselves. Actually hearing yourself represents progress. It's the first step toward making changes. I know for myself the process of change didn't come easily. I'd hear myself using the old, unhelpful ways. What's wrong with you kids? You never remember to turn off the light in the bathroom. Then I'd get annoyed with myself. I'd resolve never to say that again. Then I'd say it again. Remorse. I'll never learn this stuff. How else could I have said that? I know. I should have said, children, the light's on in the bathroom. Or, better still, kids, the light. Then I'd worry that I'd never have the chance to say it. I had nothing to worry about. They always left the light on in the bathroom. But the next time I was ready for them, kids, the light. Someone ran and turned it off. Success. Then there were the times when I'd say all the right things and nothing seemed to work. The kids would either ignore me or even worse, defy me. When that happened, there was only one thing I wanted to do: punish them. In order to understand more deeply what happens between people when one person punishes another, please read the next 2 scenes and answer the questions that follow them. Scene 1. Mother, stop running up and down the aisles. I want you to stay close to me while we shop. Why are you touching everything? Put those bananas back. No, we are not buying them, we have plenty at home. Stop squeezing the tomatoes. I'm warning you, if you don't listen to me, you are going to be sorry. Get your hand out of there. Will you? I'll pick out the ice cream. You're running again. Do you want to fall? Okay, that does it. Do you know you nearly knocked over that old lady? You are going to be punished. You are not going to have a single spoonful of this ice cream I bought for tonight. Maybe that'll teach you not to behave like a wild animal. Scene 2. Father, Billy, were you using my saw? Billy, no. Father, are you sure? Billy, I swear, I never touched it. Father, well, then, how come I found it lying outside, full of rust? Next to that go-kart you and your friend are making? Billy, oh, yeah. We were using it last week and then it started to rain, so we went inside, and I guess I forgot. Father, so you lied? Billy, I didn't lie. I really forgot. Father, yeah, the way you forgot my hammer last week and my screwdriver the week before. Billy, gee, Dad, I didn't mean to. Sometimes I just forget. Father, well, maybe this will help you remember. Not only are you never going to get a chance to use my tools again, but for lying to me on top of it, you'll stay home when we all go to the movies tomorrow. Questions. 1. What motivated the parents in each scene to punish their children? Scene I. Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. Scene 2. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. 2. What do you think might be the feelings of the children who were punished? Scene I. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Scene 2. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. To punish or not to punish? Whenever that question comes up in a group, I usually ask, why? Why do we punish? Here are some of the answers parents have given. If you don't punish them, kids will try to get away with murder. Sometimes I get so frustrated, I don't know what else to do. How will my child learn that what he did was wrong and not to do it? Again, if I don't punish him, I punish my son because it's the only thing he understands. When I asked parents to remember their own feelings when they were punished, I got the following responses. I used to hate my mother. I'd think, she's such a bitch, and then I'd feel so guilty. I used to think, my father's right. I am bad. I deserve to be punished. I used to fantasize that I'd get very sick and then they'd be sorry for what they did to me. I remember thinking, they're so mean. I'll fix them. I'll do it again. Only next time I won't get caught. The more these parents talked, the more aware they became that punishment could lead to feelings of hatred, revenge, defiance, guilt, unworthiness, and self-pity. Nevertheless, they still worried. If I give up punishment, won't I be putting my children in the driver's seat? I'm afraid of losing my final method of control and leaving myself powerless. I understood their concerns. I remember asking Dr. Jinot, at what point is it alright to punish a child who ignores or defies you? Shouldn't there be consequences for a child who misbehaves? He answered that a child should experience the consequences of his misbehavior, but not punishment. He felt that in a caring relationship, there was no room for punishment. I pressed him further, but suppose a child continues to disobey you. Isn't it alright to punish him then? Dr. Jinot said that the problem with punishment was that it didn't work, that it was a distraction, that instead of the child feeling sorry for what he has done and thinking about how he can make amends, he becomes preoccupied with revenge fantasies. In other words, by punishing a child we actually deprive him of the very important inner process of facing his own misbehavior. This way of thinking that punishment doesn't work because it's a distraction was very new to me. But it left me with another question. What could I do instead? Take some time now to think about how else the parents could have handled the two situations you read about. See what ideas you come up with. 1. What are some possibilities other than punishment for handling the child in the supermarket? Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. 2. What are some possibilities other than punishment for handling the child who took his father's tools and didn't return them? Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. Underscore 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 on. I'm always impressed by the ingenuity of parents. Give them a little quiet and some time in which to think, and they usually come up with a variety of ways to handle problems other than by punishment. For example, look at the suggestions that came from just one group. Mother and child could have a rehearsal at home in a pretend store with props. As they play act together, mother can review the finer points of supermarket decorum. They could write a simple book together, with drawings, called Johnny Goes Ohi Supermarket. The book could include Johnny's responsibilities as an active member of the shopping team, the one who helps to push the cart, load, unload, and sort. Or Johnny, with mother's help, could work out a shopping list in words or pictures of groceries that he would be in charge of finding and putting in the basket. Father and son could work out a library card system whereby each tool is checked out and must be returned before the next is borrowed. Father might buy his son a starter set of tools for his next birthday. Or the son could start saving for his own set. Notice, all of these suggestions stress prevention. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could always forestall problems by planning ahead? For those times when we have neither the foresight nor the energy, here are some alternatives to punishment that can be used on the spot. Alternatives to punishment. 1. Point out a way to be helpful. 2. Express strong disapproval, without attacking character. 3. State your expectations. 4. Show the child how to make amends. 5. Offer a choice. 6. Take action. 7. Allow the child to experience the consequences of his misbehavior. Alternatives to punishment. Instead of point out a way to be helpful. Instead of express strong disapproval, without attacking the child's character. Instead of offer a choice. Instead of take action, remove or restrain. But suppose he behaves so badly that mother is forced to leave the store. What then? On the following day, without lecturing or moralizing, she can let him experience the consequences of his misbehavior. Let him experience the consequences. Alternatives to punishment. For many children, any of these approaches would be enough to encourage them to act more responsibly. But suppose the child continues borrowing and forgetting? Offer a choice. And if he still continues? Offer a choice. Now let's look at another way that parents can handle a persistent disciplinary problem. At the end of one workshop, a mother described the difficulties she was having getting her son, Bobby, to come home on time. She told us about his constant excuses, his broken promises, and his broken watches. From the groans of recognition when she spoke, it was clear that her problem was not uncommon. Before our next session, I prepared an exercise for the group. I took the original situation and restated it from what I thought might be Bobby's point of view. Then I wrote 3 possible ways that parents might handle Bobby's chronic lateness. Please try this same exercise for yourself now. After reading Bobby's story and each parent's reaction to it, Write down how you think Bobby might feel. Bobby's story: I like to play after school with my friends in the school playground. I know I'm supposed to be home by 5:45, but sometimes I forget. Yesterday and the day before, I came home late. My mother was so mad at me that today I made sure to ask my friend the time. I didn't want my mother to scream at me like that again. My friend told me that it was 6:15. I stopped playing right away and ran all the way home. I explained to my mother that I did remember to ask the time, but it was already too late, and I ran home as fast as I could. First parent's response: I've had enough of your excuses. I see now you can't be trusted. Well, this time you are going to be punished. Every day next week you'll come home after school and stay home. And don't think you'll sit around watching TV either, because even if I'm not home I'm telling the sitter that there'll be no television for you. You can go straight to your room now, because dinner is over. What might Bobby say to himself? Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. Second parent's response: Oh dear, you're all overheated from running. Let me get a wash rag and wipe your face. Promise me you won't ever be late again. You're making a nervous wreck of me. Now go in and wash your hands, and please hurry, because your dinner is getting cold. Oh, maybe mommy will warm it up for you. What might Bobby say to himself? Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. Third parent's response: You're telling me you made an effort and I'm glad to hear it. But I'm still upset. I don't want to have to go through that kind of worry again. I expect that when you say you'll be home at 5:45, I'll be able to count on it. We've eaten already. There's no more chicken left, but if you like, you can make yourself a sandwich. What might Bobby say to himself? Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on. Obviously there is no way of determining what the real Bobby would say to himself, but you might be interested in hearing the thoughts of the parents in the group who did this exercise. They felt that the first parent was too punitive. The child would think, she's mean. I'll get back at her. The second parent was a doormat. The child would think, I can get away with anything with her. The third parent was just right. She was assertive without being punitive. Her child might think to himself, Mom was really mad. I'd better get home on time from now on. Besides, she has confidence in me. I can't let her down. And I didn't like having to make myself an old sandwich. With this exercise in mind, the real mother went home and tried this last approach. And it worked for 3 weeks. Then Bobby went back to his old habit. The mother was at her wit's end. As she described her frustration, many questions arose in the group. What can be done in a case like this? Suppose you really have tried everything, and the problem goes on and on. What can we do when there seems to be nothing left to do but punish? When a problem persists, we can usually assume that it is more complex than it originally appeared. For a complex problem, a more complex skill is needed. Parent educators, labor negotiators, marriage counselors have worked out some excellent detailed methods for resolving difficult conflicts. Here's the version that I presented to the group. To problem solve. Step I talk about the child's feelings and needs. Step 2. Talk about your feelings and needs. Step 3. Brainstorm together to find a mutually agreeable solution. Step 4. Write down all ideas without evaluating. Step V. Decide which suggestions you like, which you don't like, and which you plan to follow through on. Problem solving. Step I. Talk about the child's feelings and needs. Step 2. Talk about your feelings and needs. Step 3. Brainstorm to find a mutually agreeable solution. Step 4. Write down all ideas without evaluating. Step V. Decide which suggestions you like, which you don't like, and which you plan to follow through on. After outlining to the group the steps of the problem-solving approach, we decided that it would be helpful if we role-played the situation. I played the mother and the real mother played her son, Bobby. Here's the script of the dialogue we had together, taken from the tape recorder that was on that evening. As you can see, the mother threw herself into her son's role wholeheartedly. Mother, Bobby, there's something I'd like to talk about. Is this a good time for you? Bobby, suspiciously, it's okay. What is it? Mother, it's about the business of getting home on time for dinner. Bobby, I told you, I've been trying, but I always have to leave when we're right in the middle of a game. Mother, oh? Bobby, nobody else has to go as early as me. Nobody. Mother, Bobby, and I have to keep asking everybody the time, 'cause my stupid watch is broken, and they always tell me to shut up, pest. Mother, oh, that can hurt. Bobby, yeah. Then Kenny calls me a baby. Mother, that, too. So what I hear you saying is that you're under a lot of pressure from the other kids to stay. Bobby, that's right. Mother, Bobby, do you know how it is from my point of view? Bobby, yeah, you want me home on time. Mother, that's part of it, but mainly I worry when you're late. Bobby, then don't worry. Mother, I wish I didn't. Look, let's put our heads together and take a fresh look at this problem and see whether we could come up with some ideas that would be good for both of us. Mother takes out pencil. You start. Bobby, I'll come home late, but you won't worry. Mother, all right, I'll write that down. What else? Bobby, I don't know. Mother, hey, I have a thought. I could come to the playground and pick you up. Bobby, no, that's no good. Mother, we're writing down all our ideas. Later we'll decide which we like and which we don't like. What else? Bobby, long pause, I guess I could get my watch fixed. Mother, writes get watch fixed, anything else? Bobby, why do we always have to eat together? Can't you just leave my dinner for me? Mother, writes leave dinner, the days are getting longer now. I suppose we could have dinner 15 minutes later. Bobby, only 15 minutes. Mother, you'd like it to be more. Writes eat 15 minutes. Later, any other ideas, or should we look at our list now? And see what we want to cross out and what we want to keep? Bobby, let's look. Mother, reads, possible solutions. Bobby comes home late. Mother doesn't worry. Pick up Bobby at playground. Get watch fixed. Leave dinner in oven. Eat 15 minutes later. Bobby, cross out where you pick me up every day. Kenny would really tease me if you did that. Mother, okay. Well, I have to cross out. Come home late. Because the fact is I do worry. But let's look at this next. 1. I suppose I could move dinner to 6:15. Would 15 extra minutes help? Bobby, no. Well, maybe a little. Mother, and I suppose I could leave dinner in the oven for you. Occasionally, if I knew ahead of time. Bobby, yeah, and leave and get watch fixed. Mother, well, the problem with that is that this is the second time. The watch has been broken, and I think I'd resent having to pay for the repairs again. Bobby, I have money saved. Almost $4. Would that be enough to get it fixed? Mother, not really, but it would certainly help. I suppose Dad. And I might pay the rest. Bobby, I'll be careful, I swear. I'll take it off if me and Kenny do arm wrestling. And I'll look at it while I'm playing so I know when to leave. Mother, you will? Looks at list. Well, let's see what we've decided so far. I'll move dinner up to 6:15. That'll give you 15 extra minutes to play. We'll put our money together and get your watch repaired. And occasionally, if you let me know in advance, I can keep your dinner warm for you. How does all that hit you? Bobby, good. At our next session, everyone immediately asked Bobby's mother, did you try problem solving? What happened? She smiled and told us that she had tried it that same night, and that Bobby was intrigued with the idea. It was almost funny, she said. What our whole discussion boiled down to was that he hated wearing a watch, but that if the family could eat 15 minutes later he'd listen for the 6 o'clock whistle from the firehouse, and that would be his signal to start for home. And so far, she said, he's kept his word. Doesn't sound too hard, does it? But it is. And the hardest part is not the learning of the separate steps. With a little study, that can be accomplished. The hardest part is the shift we have to make in attitude. We have to stop thinking of the child as a problem that needs correction. We have to give up the idea that because we're adults we always have the right answer. We have to stop worrying that if we're not tough enough the child will take advantage of us. It requires a great act of faith to believe that if we take the time to sit down and share our real feelings with a young person, and listen to his feelings, together we'll come up with solutions that will be right for both of us. There is an important message built into this approach. It says, when there is conflict between us, we no longer have to mobilize our forces against each other and worry about who will emerge victorious and who will go down in defeat. Instead, we can put our energy into searching for the kinds of solutions that respect both our needs as individuals. We are teaching our children that they needn't be our victims or our enemies. We are giving them the tools that will enable them to be active participants in solving the problems that confront them now, while they're at home, and in the difficult, complex world that awaits them. Assignment. This coming week, use an alternative to punishment. What alternative did you use? What was your child's reaction? Underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 on underscore 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 un underscore 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 un underscore 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 un. To think of a problem that comes up regularly in your home that might be eased by the problem-solving approach. Find a time that is good for both of you, a place where you won't be interrupted, and problem solve with your child. 3. Read Part 2 of Alternatives to Punishment Comments, Questions, and Parents' Stories. A quick reminder. Instead of punishment. 1. Express your feelings strongly without attacking character. I'm furious that my new saw was left outside to rust in the rain. 2. State your expectations. I expect my tools to be returned after they've been borrowed. 3. Show the child how to make amends. What this saw needs now is a little steel wool and a lot of elbow grease. 4. Offer a choice. You can borrow my tools and return them, or you can give up the privilege of using them. You decide. 5. Take action. Child, why is the toolbox locked? Father, you tell me why. 6. Problem solve. What can we work out so that you can use my tools when you need them, and so that I'll be sure they're there when I need them. Part 2, Comments, Questions, and Parents' Stories. Questions about punishment. 1. If a small child who doesn't talk yet touches something he shouldn't, isn't it alright to slap his little hand? Just because children aren't talking doesn't mean they aren't listening or understanding. Little children are learning every minute of every day. The question is, what are they learning? The parent has a choice here. She can repeatedly slap the child's hand, thus teaching him that the only way for him to learn what not to do is to be slapped. Or she can treat the child as a dignified, small human being by giving him information he can use now and for the rest of his life. As she removes the child, or the object, she can tell him firmly and clearly. Knives are not for licking. You can lick this spoon if you like. This China dog can break. Your stuffed dog won't break. She may need to repeat the same information many times, but repeated information conveys a far different message from repeated slaps. 2. What is the difference between punishment and natural consequences? Aren't they just different words for the same thing? We see punishment as the parent deliberately depriving a child for a set period of time or inflicting pain on him, in order to teach that child a lesson. Consequences, on the other hand, come about as a natural result of the child's behavior. A father in one of our groups once shared an experience that to us sums up the difference between punishment and consequences. Here it is in his words. My teenage son asked to borrow my navy blue sweater, because he said it would look neat with his new jeans. I told him, okay. But be careful, and forgot about it after that. A week later, when I wanted to wear it, I found it under a pile of dirty laundry on the floor of his room. The back was covered with chalk and the front was spattered with something that looked like spaghetti sauce. I was so mad, because this wasn't the first time, that I swear if he had come in at that moment I would have told him that he could forget about going to the ball game with me on Sunday. I'd give his ticket to someone else. Anyway, when I saw him later I had calmed down a little, but I still bawled him out. He told me he was sorry and all that, but darned if he didn't ask me for it again a week later. I said, nothing doing. No lectures. No speeches. He knew why. Then, a month after that, he asked for my plaid shirt for a school field trip. I told him, look, before I lend anything again, I need some reassurance in writing that my shirt will be returned in the same condition in which it was borrowed. That night I found a note on my pile of mail. It said, Dear Dad, if you let me borrow your shirt, I'll do everything I can to keep it clean. I won't lean against the blackboard. I won't put my ballpoint pen in the pocket. And when I eat lunch I'll cover myself with paper napkins. Love. Mark. Well, I was very impressed with the note. I figured that if he took the trouble to write it he'd probably take the trouble to do what he said. P.S. The shirt was returned to me the next night on a hanger, and it was clean. To us, that story showed natural consequences in action. One natural consequence of returning borrowed property in damaged condition is the owner's displeasure. Another natural consequence is the owner's reluctance to lend you anything again. It's also possible that the owner might change his mind if he gets some concrete evidence that it won't happen again. But the responsibility to change is clearly the borrower's. The owner doesn't have to do anything to you to teach you a lesson. It's a lot easier to learn from the hard realities of people's real reactions than from a person who decides to punish you for your own good. Last week I found a pile of orange peels in pits on the sofa. When I asked my boys who did it, each one pointed to the other. If it isn't a good idea to find out which child is guilty and then punish him, what can I do? The question who did it usually leads to an automatic, not me. Which in turn leads to, well, one of you must be lying. The more we try to get at the truth, the more loudly the children protest their innocence. When we see something that angers us, it's more helpful to express that anger than to locate the culprit and punish him. I get furious when I see food on our sofa. Orange peels can stain it permanently. At this point you may hear a chorus of, "But I didn't do it. He made me. The dog did it. It was the baby." This is your opportunity to let everyone know. I'm not interested in knowing who did it. I'm not interested in blaming anyone for what happened in the past. I am interested in seeing improvement in the future. By not blaming or punishing, we free the children to focus on taking responsibility, rather than on taking revenge. Now I'd like both of you to help clear the sofa of all peels and pits. For you say that one alternative to punishment is to express your disapproval. When I do that my child looks so guilty and is so miserable for the rest of the day that I get upset. Is it possible that I'm overdoing it? We can understand your concern. Dr. Selma Freyberg in her book The Magic Years says, a child needs to feel our disapproval at certain times. But if our reaction is of such strength that the child feels worthless and despised for his offense, we have abused our power as parents and have created the possibility that exaggerated guilt feelings and self-hatred will play a part in this child's personality development. That's why we feel that whenever possible, along with our disapproval, we should point the way toward helping a child to make amends. After his initial remorse, the child needs a chance to restore his own good feeling about himself and to see himself as a respected, responsible family member once again. As parents, we can give him that chance. Here are some examples. I'm furious. The baby was playing happily until you took her rattle away. I expect you to find some way to end her crying now. Instead of you made the baby cry again. Now you're going to get a smack. It really upsets me to come home to a sink full of dirty dishes when you gave your word they would be done. I'd like them washed and put away before bedtime. Instead of you can forget about going out tomorrow night. Maybe that will teach you to keep your word. A whole box of soap powder emptied on the bathroom floor. It makes me so angry to see such a mess. Soap powder is not for playing with. We need a bag, a broom, and a dustpan. Quick, before it gets tracked all over the house. Instead of look at the work you made for me. No TV for you tonight. Statements like these say to the child, I don't like what you did, and I expect you to take care of it. We hope that later on in life, as an adult, when he does something he regrets, he'll think to himself, what can I do to make amends to set things right again, rather than what I just did proves I'm an unworthy person who deserves to be punished. 5. I don't punish my son anymore, but now when I scold him for doing something wrong he says, I'm sorry. Then the next day he does the same thing again. What can I do about it? Some children use I'm sorry as a way of placating an angry parent. They're quick to apologize and just as quick to repeat their misbehavior. It's important for these youngsters to realize that if they're genuinely sorry, their feelings of remorse should be translated into action. The Repeat offender can be told any of the following. Sorry means behaving differently. Sorry means making changes. I'm glad to hear you're sorry. That's the first step. The second step is to ask yourself what can be done about it. The experts speak out on punishment. Every once in a while an article appears singing the praises of punishment and telling us how to do it. Explain the punishment ahead of time. Punish as promptly as possible. Let the punishment fit the crime. Often, to angry, beleaguered parents, this kind of advice seems to make good sense. What follows are quotes from a variety of professionals in the mental health field who have another point of view about punishment. Punishment is a very ineffective method of discipline, for punishment, strangely enough, often has the effect of teaching the child to behave in exactly the opposite way from the way we want him to behave. Many parents use punishment simply because no one has ever taught them better ways of disciplining their children. How to Father, Dr. Fitzhugh Dodson, Signet, 1974. The act of disciplining a child can be a frustrating one. However, at the outset it needs to be stressed that discipline means education. Discipline is essentially programmed guidance that helps people to develop internal self-control, self-direction, and efficiency. If it is to work, discipline requires mutual respect and trust. On the other hand, punishment requires external control over a person by force and coercion. Punishing agents seldom respect or trust the one punished. The case against spanking, Brian G. Gilmerton, Ph.D., in Human Behavior, February 1979, Volume 8, Number 2. From a review of the literature it is concluded that physical punishment by parents does not inhibit violence and most likely encourages it. Punishment both frustrates the child and gives him a model to imitate and learn from. Violence and the Struggle for Existence, work of the Committee on Violence of the Department of Psychiatry, Stanford University School of Medicine, edited by David N. Daniels, M.D., Marshall F. Giuliola, M.D., and Frank M. Ochberg, M.D., Little, Brown and Company, 1970. Confused and bewildered parents mistakenly hope that punishment will eventually bring results, without realizing that they are actually getting nowhere with their methods. The use of punishment only helps the child to develop a greater power of resistance and defiance. Children, The Challenge. Rudolf Dreikurs, M.D., Hawthorne. 1964. There are a number of other possibilities in learning which spanking provides, none of which are intended by parents. The child may learn how to avoid successfully any guilt feelings for bad behavior by setting up a cycle in which the punishment cancels the crime and the child, having paid for his mischief, is free to repeat the act another time without attendant guilt feelings. The child who does everything possible to provoke a spanking is a child who is carrying a secret debt on the sin side of the ledger, which the parent is invited to wipe out by means of a spanking. A spanking is just what the child does not need. The Magic Years, Selma H. Freyberg, Scribners, 1959. Researchers believe that 1 in 5 parents have suffered abuse at the hands of their children, an expression perhaps of the adolescent turmoil that can bubble over objects lobbed at their heads, shoving, pushing, furious verbal abuse. There is stark evidence that physical abuse of the parent is actually learned at the knee of the parent. Newsday, August 15, 1978. Instead of punishing, experience is shared by parents in our groups. My 4-year-old daughter, Marnie, has always been a very difficult child. She gets me into such rages that I can't control myself. Last week I came home and found that she had scribbled on the wallpaper in her room with crayon. I was so furious, I gave her a good spanking. Then I told her I was taking her crayons away, which I did. The next morning I woke up and thought I'd die. She had taken my lipstick and scrawled all over the bathroom tile. I wanted to strangle her, but stopped myself. Very calmly I asked, Marnie, did you do this because you were mad at me for taking away your crayons? She nodded her head. I said, Marnie, I get very, very upset when the walls are written on. It's a lot of work for me to have to wash them off and get them clean again. Do you know what she did? She took a wash rag and started to try to Wipe the lipstick off. I showed her how to use soap and water and she worked on the tile for about 10 minutes. Then she called me in to show me that most of the lipstick was off. I thanked her and then I gave her back her crayons and some paper to put in her room for whenever she wanted to draw. I thanked her and then I gave her back her crayons and some paper to put in her room for whenever she wanted to draw. I was so proud of myself, I called my husband at work to tell him what I did. It's been over a month now, and Marnie hasn't written on the walls since. No sooner had I walked in through the door after last week's session than I received a phone call from Donnie's math teacher. She sounded very angry. She told me that my son was falling behind in his work, that he was a disruptive influence in class, that he still didn't know his times table, and that maybe what he needed was more discipline at home. I thanked her for calling, but inside I was shaking. My first thought was, he should be punished. He'll watch no television at all until he learns those multiplication tables and starts to behave himself in class. Luckily, I had an hour to cool off before he came home from school. When Donnie came home, we had the following conversation. Mrs. K called today and sounded very upset. Donnie, oh, she's always upset about something. I consider it a very serious matter when I get a call from the school. She said you were disruptive in class and you didn't know your times table. Donnie, well, Mitchell keeps hitting me on the head with his notebook. So I hit him back with mine. You feel you have to retaliate? Donnie, what's retaliate? Get back at him. Donnie, that's right. And sometimes he writes me a note and cracks me up. And then he kicks my chair until I answer him. No wonder no work gets done. Donnie, I know my table up to 6. I just don't know my 7s and 8s. Donnie, do you think it would help your concentration in class if you and Mitchell didn't sit near each other? Donnie, I don't know. Maybe I could get the 7s and 8s if I studied. I feel Mrs. K should know that. Suppose we write her a letter. Okay with you? Donnie nodded. I took out my pencil and wrote, Dear Mrs. K. I discussed our phone conversation with Donnie and he says, Donnie, what shall I tell her? Donnie, tell her to change my seat away from Mitchell. Writing, he says he would like his seat to be changed so he doesn't sit so close to Mitchell. Is that right? Donnie, yeah. Anything else? Donnie, long pause, tell her I'll write out my 7 and 8 times table and say it out loud to myself. I write and read to him. He also plans to write out his 7 and 8 times table and drill himself. Anything else? Donnie, no. I'll close by saying, thank you for bringing this matter to our attention. I read the entire letter to Donnie again. We both signed it and he brought it to school the next day. I know something must have changed. Because when he came home the first thing he told me was that Mrs. K had changed his seat and was nice to him today. This story was reported by a mother who had sat grimly through our first few sessions shaking her head. On the 4th session she came in and claimed the floor to tell us the following. I didn't believe anything here could be applied to my child. Van is so stubborn, so unmanageable, the only thing he understands is punishment. Last week I almost fainted when my neighbor told me she had seen him cross a busy intersection that he had been strictly forbidden to cross. I didn't know what to do. I had already taken away his bicycle, his television, his allowance, what was left. In desperation, I decided to try some of the things you've been talking about in the group. When we came home I said, Van, we have a problem. Here is how I think you feel. You want to get to the other side of the street when you want to without having to ask someone to cross with you. Is that right? He nodded his head. Here's how I feel. I worry when I think about a 6-year-old boy crossing a dangerous intersection where there have been so many accidents. When there is a problem, we need a solution. Think about it and tell me what your ideas are at supper. Van immediately started to talk. I said, not now. It's a very serious problem. I'd like us both to give it a lot of thought. We'll talk at supper when Daddy is here. That night I prepared my husband in advance to just listen. Van washed his hands and was in his seat promptly. As soon as his father came into the room he said very excitedly, "I have a solution. Every night, when Daddy comes home, we'll go to the corner, and he'll teach me how to look at the lights and when to cross." Then he paused, and said, "And on my 7th birthday I'll cross by myself." My husband almost fell out of his chair. I guess we've both been underestimating our son. Nikki, 10, reported in an offhand way, while I was rushing to make dinner and go out, that 3 of his textbooks were missing and I had to send in $9. I totally blew up. My first impulse was to hit him or punish him. But, even though I was over the edge with anger, I somehow managed to get hold of myself and start my sentences with the word I. I think I was screaming as loud as is humanly possible. I am furious. I am enraged. 3 books are lost and now I have to cough up $9 for it. I'm so angry I feel like I'm going to explode. And to hear this when I'm rushing to make dinner and go out. And now I have to stop and take the time to write down the homework. Problems over the phone. I am boiling. When I stopped screaming, the most concerned little face appeared in the doorway and Nikki said, "Mom, I'm sorry. You don't have to cough up the $9. I'll cough it up out of my allowance." I think the biggest grin I've ever grinned appeared on my face. I have surely never stopped feeling angry so fast and so completely. What are a few lost books to a person who has a son who really cares about her feelings? Part 3, more about problem solving. Before problem solving, we've discovered that for the problem solving process to work, we have to, as the kids would say, psych ourselves. We tell ourselves, "I'm going to be as accepting and tuned into my child as possible. I'm going to listen for information and feelings I might not have heard before. I'll steer clear of judgments, evaluations, and lectures. I won't try to persuade or convince. I'll consider any new ideas no matter how far out. I won't be pressured by time. If we can't come up with an immediate solution, it may mean we have to do more thinking, more investigating, more talking. The key word is respect for my child, for myself, and for the unlimited possibilities of what can happen when 2 people of goodwill put their heads together." Cautions about each step of the problem-solving process. Before you begin, ask yourself, am I still seething with emotion, or am I calm enough now even to begin this whole process? You can't problem solve when you're boiling. Then check out your child's mood. Is this a good time for you to talk? If she says yes, then 1. Talk about the child's feelings. I imagine you must be feeling. Don't rush this part. Let your attitude be, I'm really trying to get clear on how you feel about all this. Only when the child feels heard and understood will she be able to consider your feelings. 2. Talk about your feelings. Here's how I feel about it. Keep this part short and clear. It's hard for a child to listen to a parent who goes on and on about his worry, his anger, or his resentment. 3. Invite the child to work on finding a mutually acceptable solution. If possible, let the child come up with the first few ideas. The crucial point here is to refrain from evaluating or commenting on any of those ideas. The instant you say, "Well, that's no good," the whole process ends and you've undone all your work. All ideas should be welcomed. Very often the most unlikely ones can lead to some fine, workable solutions. The key sentence is, we're writing down all our ideas. It's not essential to write, but somehow putting each idea in writing gives great dignity to each contribution. One child was overheard saying, "My mother is so smart. She writes down all my ideas." 4. Decide which ideas you like, which you don't like, and which ideas you want to put into action. Watch out for put-down statements, "That's a dumb idea." Instead, describe your personal reactions. "I wouldn't be comfortable with that because," or "that sounds like something I could do." 5. Follow through. The danger here is getting so carried away with your good feelings at having come up with a workable solution that you don't bother to make a specific plan to follow through. It's important to add, what steps do we have to take to get this plan into motion? Who will be responsible for what? By when shall we have it done? 6. Don't permit the child to blame or accuse you at any point. Child, yeah, but that wouldn't work because you always. You. Never. It's important that the parent be firm when this happens. Parent, no accusations or talk about the past. What we're trying to do now is focus on a solution for the future. Questions about problem solving. 1. Suppose the plan you and your child agree upon works for a while, and then falls through. What then? These are the times that test our determination. We can either go back to lecturing and punishing, or we can go back to the drawing board. 4. Example. Parent, I'm disappointed that our approach isn't working anymore. I find myself doing your job, and that's unacceptable to me. Shall we give the old plan another chance? Shall we talk about what's getting in the way? Or shall we work out another solution? As adults, we realize that few solutions are permanent. What would work for the child when he was 4 may not work for him now that he is 5. What worked in the winter may not work in the spring. Life is a continual process of adjustment and readjustment. What's important for the child is that he continue to see himself as part of the solution rather than as part of the problem. 2. Do you always have to go through all the steps to resolve the problem? No, a problem can be resolved at any step along the way. Sometimes a simple description of your conflicting needs can lead to a very quick solution. For example, Mother, we have a real problem here. You want me to take you for sneakers now. I want to finish sorting all the laundry and then I have to start supper. Child, maybe I could finish the laundry while you get ready to go. And then when we come home I'll help you make supper. Mother, I think that would work. 3. Suppose we go through all the steps and still don't come up with a solution we can both agree on. What then? That can happen. But nothing has been lost. By discussing the problem, each of you has become more sensitive to the other's needs. In a difficult situation, this is often the best that can be hoped for. And sometimes it's just a matter of needing more time to think, to let the beans cook, before a solution can be reached. 4. Suppose a child refuses to sit down and problem solve with you. What then? There are some children who are uncomfortable with this approach. For these youngsters, a note, based on the same principle, can be an effective substitute. Dear Johnny, I'd like your ideas on solving the problem of you probably want, need, feel. I want, need, feel. Please let me know of any solutions you can think of that we might both agree on. Love. Dad. 5. Isn't this an approach that works best for older children? Parents of young children have reported great success with this approach. On the following pages you'll find stories in which parents used problem-solving skills with children of various ages. Problem-solving in action. Situation: the cradle I lent to a friend was just returned to me. I put it in the bedroom. Brian, age 2, examines it and is fascinated by the swinging basket. Brian, Mommy, I go up in cradle. Mommy, sweetheart, you're much too big for that cradle. Brian. Yes, I go up in cradle. Begins to climb into it. Mommy, restraining him. Brian, Mommy said you're too big. The cradle might break if I put you in it. Brian, please, Mommy. I go up in cradle now. Begins to whine. Mommy, I said, no. Poor move on Mommy's part. I realized it as soon as I said it, and as Brian's whining turned into a minor tantrum, I decided to try problem solving with him. Mommy, sweetie, I can see how much you want to get into the cradle right now. It probably looks like lots of fun to swing in. I'd like to swing in it, too. The problem is that it won't hold me, and it won't hold you. We're too big. Brian, Mommy too big just like Brinny. Brian leaves the room and comes back with Goover, his stuffed bear, and puts him in the cradle. He begins to rock the basket back and forth. Brian, see, Mommy? Brinny rocking Goover, okay? Mommy, Goover is just the right size. After much frustration with the whole toilet training process, I decided to try the problem-solving technique with my son, who was 3 at the time. We sat down together at the table and I said, David, I've been thinking about how hard it is for a little boy to learn how to use the toilet. I'll bet sometimes you're so busy playing that you don't even notice that you have to go. He looked at me with his big eyes but didn't say anything. Then I said, I'll bet that sometimes even when you do notice it's hard to get to the bathroom in time and climb onto that toilet. He nodded his head, yes. Then I asked him to bring me paper and crayon so that we could write down all the ideas that we could think of that might help. He ran into his room and brought me a yellow paper and a red crayon. I sat down with him and began to write. I started by listing 2 ideas. Buy a step stool like the one Jimmy has in his bathroom. Mommy will ask David if he needs to go. Then David piped up, Barbara and Peter will help me. Peter is his friend, who is trained, and Barbara is his mother. Then he said, Peter wears big boy pants. I wrote, get big boy pants for David. The next day I ran out and bought him a step stool and a pile of training pants. David was delighted with both and showed them to Peter and Barbara, who were reassuring. We talked again about recognizing when he has to go, the pressure in his tummy, the need to get to the bathroom and get his pants off in time. He knew that I was sympathetic to the difficulties involved. Anyway, it's been about 3 months now and he's just about completely trained. And is he proud of himself? I waited impatiently for our next session. I had something exciting to share with the group. I had been liberated. And so had my 3.5-year-old daughter, Rachel. It started early Tuesday morning when the telephone rang. Susie, could you take Danielle for me this afternoon? Sure, I said. We hung up, and I realized I had shopping to do and now I would have to drag 2 children around with me. Or Rachel had been attending a 45-minute morning outdoor preschool group. However, she would go only if I sat on the bench outside within view. Other mothers dropped their kids off and left. I stayed. I said to Rachel, I must go shopping today while you're in preschool. Danielle will be with us all afternoon, and I won't have time to shop. Tears from Rachel. Here was my opportunity to use my problem-solving skills. I said to Rachel, I see you're sad. How can we solve this problem? Let's write this all down. Rachel's eyes lit up as I wrote. Problem: Rachel doesn't want mommy to leave and mommy has to buy milk. She doesn't have time after preschool, so she has to do it during preschool. Suggestions to solve problem. Mine: 1. Go during school and run back. Rachel's: 2. Not buy milk. Rachel's: 3. Go after school. Mine: 4. While mommy is shopping, Rachel could sing, draw, and play. Mine: 5. Rachel will stay at preschool while mommy is shopping. Rachel's: 6. Mommy only buys one thing and will run back fast. Rachel's: 7. Tomorrow we will buy gum together. Rachel's: 8. If Rachel wants to cry, she will cry. We read the list, and I explained that if I didn't buy milk, Rachel and Daddy would be disappointed. So we crossed that off our list. I re-explained that I wouldn't have time to go after school, so that was crossed off, too. Rachel seemed content. We walked to preschool. Rachel hugged and kissed me goodbye. She reminded me to go to one store only, and then sat down in the circle with the other children. I dashed to the store and was back in plenty of time to see Rachel happily engrossed in a game with her friends. School let out. Rachel greeted me with, "Did you go?" I sure did. You must be proud of yourself staying here by yourself. Rachel nodded. Wednesday morning. Rachel, looking tense, is there preschool today? Me, expecting, are you staying? Yes. Rachel, oh, mommy. Well, if I want to cry, I'll cry. And if I don't want to cry, I won't. Me, let's write that down. I did. She added that she would sit next to a friend. Then she said, Mommy, when you come back fast. So fast that you fall down. Run. I brought her to preschool. She gave me a hug, a kiss, and a reminder to run and run. I returned 45 minutes later. Me, you stayed by yourself. Rachel, yeah, I'm proud of myself. Friday morning. Rachel, Mom, is there preschool today? Me, yes. Rachel, well, write this down, I'll sit next to a friend. Problem resolved. Rachel goes to preschool. Mommy shops. Now that I look back on it, I realize that it took a great deal of effort to discipline myself to spend the necessary time to sit with Rachel and work through our problem. I'm glad I did. Rachel is 2. My son, Michael Howard, is 5.5 and in kindergarten. He reads 3rd to 6th grade books. He has a large vocabulary and has decided he wants to be a plastic surgeon. He likes it when I read to him from medical books on different parts of the body. Michael comes into my bed quite often at night. I have tried everything to keep him out without making him feel unwanted. I tried staying up until 2:30 a.m. When I was fast asleep, he would come into my bed with his pillow, slippers, and robe, and crawl under the covers in the middle of my king-size bed. I would find him there in the morning curled up next to me. He even suggested that I sleep in his bed and he would sleep in mine. After coming home from a workshop, I decided to try another way. I asked Michael Howard what could be done so that he would not come into my bed at night. He said, "Let me think." He went into his room. About 10 minutes later he was back with a yellow pad and a pen. He said, "Dad, take a memo." Then he told me what to write. "Dear Michael, please do not come in tonight. Love. Dad." He left the room and returned with a yardstick and scotch tape. He measured 44 inches on the door outside my room, took the memo, and taped it to the door. Michael said, "If you don't want me to come in, leave the note down. If it's okay to come in," tape was on back bottom of memo, tape the bottom over the top of the note. "That would mean it's okay for me to come in." I said, "Thanks." At 6:02 a.m. Michael came into my bed. I get up at approximately 6 a.m. on workdays. Michael said, "See, Dad, I got up when it was dark and started into your room, but your note was down and I couldn't see a thing, but in my mind I could read it. So I went back to bed." See, Dad, all you have to do is ask and I'll help you solve your problems. This has been in effect for 2 weeks with very good results. This is the better way. Thanks. Jennifer's bedtime dilemma. Tuesday night, still fired up from last night's session, I broached the question to Jennifer, age 5. "Mother, do you have time to talk?" Jennifer, "Yes. Mother, I'd like to talk about our middle of the night problem." Jennifer, "Oh, okay. Mother, do you want to tell me how you feel about this situation that is making us both so unhappy?" Jennifer, "Something gets in me, Ma," grimace on face, fists clenched, "and I can't stay in my room. I just want to come into your room." Mother, "Oh, I see. Jennifer, I know you hate it, right?" Mother, "Well, let me tell you how I feel. After a long day I look forward to getting into bed, snuggling under the warm covers, and falling fast asleep. When I am awakened, I'm just not a very friendly mommy." Jennifer, "I know. Mother, let's see if we can come up with a solution that can make us both happy, okay?" Taking out pad and pen. Jennifer, "You're going to write it? Is it going to be a list?" Vividly impressed. Mother, "Yes. Can you start us off?" Jennifer, "I'd like to come into Mommy and Daddy's bed." Mother, "Okay, writing. Anything else?" Jennifer, "I could just wake you instead." Mother, Writing. Jennifer, "I could read by my nightlight if I scrunched down." Mother, "I bet you could." Jennifer, "But if I had a lamp, could I have a lamp?" Mother, writing, "What would you do with a lamp?" Jennifer, getting excited, "I could read a book, play with my tongue. Depressors, father is a doctor, write my letters." Mother, "Somebody sounds excited." Jennifer, "Okay, what about number 4, on list?" Mother, "Have you any more ideas?" Jennifer, quickly, "I could ask for a drink." Mother, writing. Jennifer, "And number 5 could be sneaking out to check if you're okay." Mother, "We have some list. Let's go over it." Jen promptly put X's next to the first and second solutions. She talked about buying a lamp, a pad, and crayons the next day. We picked out an atrocious orange lamp, her choice, to match her red and white room. That night went beautifully, with me receiving a shoebox, her idea, full of drawings the next morning. It's been a whole week now that she's let me sleep. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Parents told us that once their children became accustomed to problem solving, they were more able to work out their differences with their sisters and brothers. This was a big bonus for the parents. Instead of having to step in, take sides, play judge, and come up with a solution, they restated the problem and put it right back where it belonged, in the lap of the children. The statement that seemed to activate the children to take responsibility to resolve their own conflicts was, "Kids, this is a tough problem, but I have confidence that you two can put your heads together and come up with a solution that you can both agree to." This first example is from a father. Brad, 4, and Tara, 2.5, were outside. Brad was riding Tara's tricycle and Tara wanted to ride it. Tara started to get hysterical and Brad refused to get off. Normally I wouldn't have hesitated to say, "Brad, get off. That belongs to your sister. You have your own bicycle." But instead of taking Tara's side, I said, "I see you both have a problem. Tara, you want to ride your tricycle. Brad, you want to ride Tara's tricycle and she doesn't want you to." I then said to both of them, "I think you should try to find a solution to the problem that would be acceptable to both of you." Tara continued to cry, and Brad thought for a moment. Brad then said to me, "I think Tara should stand on the back of the tricycle and hold on to my stomach while I ride." I said, "This solution should be discussed with Tara, not me." Brad then asked Tara and Tara agreed. They then both rode off into the sunset. What never ceases to surprise us is the kinds of solutions children work out. They're usually completely original and far more satisfying than any suggestions the parents would have come up with. When I returned home after our last session on problem solving, my two children were in the midst of an argument about a red jacket they both wanted to wear. The jacket used to be worn by my 6-year-old daughter and is now used by my 3-year-old son. They were getting ready to go out and were fighting and screaming about who should wear the jacket. I got their attention and said, "I see two children who want to wear the same red jacket. I see one child who used to own the jacket and still wants to have it. I see another child who wants to wear the red jacket because it belongs to him now. I believe you can both come up with a solution to this problem. I'll be in the kitchen when you're ready." I went into the kitchen and my husband and I listened in amazement as we heard a discussion between them begin. 5 minutes later they entered the room and said, "We came to a solution. Josh will wear the jacket to the restaurant. And when we leave the restaurant to go to the fair, I will wear the jacket and Josh can wear my new yellow one." This final story shows a young boy grappling with the problem of how to deal with his own strong emotions. Scott, 8 years old, has trouble getting out his feelings of anger. This particular evening, something set him off and he stormed away from the dinner table with fists clenched, not knowing of an acceptable way to get rid of all his fury. On the way to his room, he accidentally knocked down one of my favorite vases. As I saw it smash and break on the floor, I became furious and, unfortunately, began screaming like a maniac. He ran into his room, slamming the door. After my husband managed to glue the vase together in time had eased the angry feelings I had, I went to his door and knocked. When he said, "What?" I asked him if it was all right if I came in. And was it a good time to talk? He looked at me with gratitude and said, "Yes." It was as if he was reassured, merely by my presence, that I still loved him and thought of him as a human being, not as a clumsy, uncontrolled child. I began by asking him how he feels when he gets so angry. He told me that he wants to punch someone or break something, to storm around and to slam things as hard as he can. I told him that when he shows his anger that way, I want to go into his room and take his favorite toy and tear it apart. Then we both looked at each other and kind of said, I asked him, with my paper and pencil in hand, if we could work out some way of showing or releasing anger that we could both live with, and he proceeded to give me suggestions. Daddy could hang up my punching bag, put something on the wall to throw my ball at, hang up my beanbag chair, Turn on my radio as loud as it goes. Get a chin-up bar. Smash a pillow over my head. Slam doors. Jump hard on the floor. Jump on the bed. Turn the light on and off. Go out and run around the house 10 times. Rip up paper. Pinch myself. I said not a word, but wrote it all down. It was interesting that, after he said those things he knew he wouldn't be allowed to do, he giggled a bit, as if to let me know that this is what he'd really like. As we went back over the list, I eliminated some things and explained to him why they wouldn't work for me. We settled on 4 possibilities. Daddy would have to give a definite time that he would try to repair and hang up the punching bag. The chinning bar would be used in the doorway to his room. He would be able to run around the house only in the daylight. When I questioned ripping up paper, I said, "There's only one problem with that." He said, "Oh, I know. I'll pick it up afterward." By this time, we were sitting closely and touching and talking very calmly. I finally said to him, "There's only one thing I'd like to